I'd like to report a shooting
Where?
on Main Street at Idaho Bar and Grill.
Somebody was shot?
There was somebody outside shooting. I just heard
Okay.
it.
Cyber 911.
I live right by the halftime bar, and it just sounded like there was a bunch of gunshots.
How many shots did you hear?
4.
4 shots?
Yes. And there's just like people flying out of the parking lot now.
Akron police officers respond to multiple reports of shots fired outside a row of bars and nightclubs.
It was a Friday night. We weren't really sure what we were walking into. When we respond to a shots fired call, generally I'm thinking if there's going to be somebody that's hurt, that's priority number 1. And then also 2, if there's going to be somebody that we're going to encounter that potentially has a firearm. The dangers of our job is the unknown. There's always a risk that I or my partner can get hurt. We never know if we could be walking into a nightmare scenario. As we're driving down the street, we see a gentleman in the middle of the road and he's waving his arms. He doesn't have a shirt on. We didn't know if this man was intoxicated or armed, so we approached cautiously. I turned on my body camera as soon as we pulled over. We have him sit down on the grass away from the traffic.
What happened? Happened at the bar? With the ambulance, man.
He was in excruciating pain. He was asking for an ambulance.
They're coming, man. They're coming.
Going off for real.
Yeah. Well, we can't get them here any faster. They're driving.
The male appeared to have a gunshot wound to the abdomen. He was very vague on what happened because he was in so much pain.
He said he ran down here, so kind of far to run, but.
We didn't know as if he was the only victim or if others had been shot. There could potentially be somebody out there that is still shooting. So we're being very vigilant, looking around as we're trying to help this gentleman out. Once EMS arrived on scene, one of the officers rode with the victim in the ambulance down to the hospital.
See if you can get anything on the way to the hospital, how he went from here to here, so we can find out where the scene. Yeah. Cool.
We knew we had to retrace this man's steps after he was taken to the hospital. He did tell us that it happened at a bar, so we kind of just pushed further down the road to the first bar. What happened was a complete mystery. We needed to investigate further.
Officers attempt to retrace the injured man's path and search the area for signs of a shooting when they're approached by a man claiming to be one of the 911 callers.
I was standing there by my RV, by the bush, and it went bam, 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 like that. And I think there were shots. No fire, I think. That's not a firecracker.
10 minutes ago or something, or?
Yeah. I just stayed quiet because I was doing the bushes on the other side of my RV. There's another van there parked beside mine. I let it up there. I heard somebody ran past. I'm pretty sure they ran past his van and down over the back of the hill.
Like through the yard? Up the driveway?
I think they must come up the drive. They were close enough I could hear them panting. And they went down over the hill there in back of the house. I wanted to check on my RV for something in there before I could even get into it. I heard those 3 shots go off. Sounded like they were right in there somewhere.
You think it was 3 shots, or?
I heard 3. It was like bam, 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 just like that.
Well, we're out here now. We're going to be checking the area, okay?
Okay.
All right, thank you, sir.
Sure.
After we spoke with the gentleman that told us he heard the 3 gunshots and heard the man running, we weren't sure if that was a victim running that we had just came into contact with, or if that was possibly our suspect, or maybe even another victim that was running. As we're checking the area, we approached a wooden fence, and at the end of the wooden fence there's an opening. When we go through the fence of the opening and we see this male who's laying on the ground, he's unconscious. We didn't know if he was shot or if he was intoxicated.
I don't know where he's hit at.
He might not be hit. He might be overdosing.
Yeah, there's one.
Yeah.
As we're checking him, that's when we noticed he had a gunshot wound. We checked his pulse, and we weren't getting any response from him, so that's when we decided to do chest compressions. And we called EMS. The male appeared to be in his late 20s. There wasn't anybody around him. So at that point, we weren't sure if this male we just found was linked to the other victim that we found on the street. We observed the victim's ID lying next to him. We identified the victim as 26-year-old Darian Hardison.
Darian was my identical twin brother. We was born 2 minutes apart. Having a twin was great just because you got a friend all the time to play with. We did everything together. Riding bikes, playing sports, tags. My mom died when we were 12, so we moved here with my granny. Darian was a little more shy than me growing up. We fought all the time, you know, we're twins. Every day we'll argue with each other, but we'll never let nobody else argue with us. We just felt safe with each other. Like, no matter what, we thought we was all right. Like, even as kids, we didn't know, like, something could really happen, but we just felt safe with each other.
Growing up with two twin brothers was crazy. My brothers were very, very protective over me. They definitely constantly watched over me. Darian was very, very intelligent. When Darian was a kid, he wanted to be a pilot. There was actually this one time we were playing football and Darian tackled me and he knocked my front tooth out. And I was hysterically crying and he was like, please don't tell grandma, you know, like, because he didn't want to get in trouble. Darian was very, very sweet to me, but at the same time, he always kept it real with me. He put a lot of wisdom in me. He was a great father. Darian was a good-hearted person, and he would give somebody the shirt off of his back. I just couldn't understand why anybody would ever want to even hurt him. But I asked myself, why him?
What's the status on EMS? We need him right behind the King's Auto.
Somebody go over there and help him.
We're trying to render first aid and try to help this gentleman, but one of the bigger concerns was that we were very close to an after-hours bar with 50 or 60 cars in the parking lot.
Fine, we're gonna need more units because it's right by the large bar. People are gonna start seeing us here soon.
Any kind of bar on a Friday night, you don't know how many people are gonna be there and what to expect.
Hey, units en route to here.
Straighten them out to do compression. Okay, all right.
The victim's barely clinging on to life. And it's very important that we get this gentleman first aid.
Paramedics arrive on scene.
Right over here.
When EMS arrived, they took over for the officer that was doing chest compressions.
He's back here. I can't tell.
But unfortunately, the victim was pronounced dead. A call that started off as a shots fired call is now turned into a homicide. And we don't know who the shooter is. We don't know if he's still armed or if there's other victims. We don't know where he's at, if he's still in Akron, and what he's capable of.
Five, just to give you a heads up, we've got like 60, 70 cars in here. People are gonna start getting nosy, and we need to secure this area and get some caution tape up.
While we're on scene, there's 60, 70 cars, maybe 30, 40 yards away from me. I can hear loud bumping music from a bar that's just across the street. We're not even sure if the suspect might be in that bar or in the parking lot. Within seconds, this parking lot can be flooded with bar patrons. We needed to secure this crime scene as fast as possible.
There we go. That's good. Look for evidence on the ground, any weapons, anything else.
We were checking the parking lot, looking for any shell casings or a blood trail. We weren't sure what we were dealing with. Nothing was really adding up.
Officers face an increasingly crowded crime scene.
No one's coming in here.
So I helped by putting up police tape, just trying to keep people out of the area. The bar that was right by us had a reputation of fights, shots fired calls, people in the bar with guns, drug activity. We were there quite a bit at that time.
All cars, prepare to copy a Bolo from car 23.
Akron police detectives arrive on scene and launch their investigation into the homicide of Darian Hardison.
We arrive on scene about 30 minutes after they find Darian Hardison deceased. Patrol still wasn't clear on exactly where the shooting occurred. We just knew where the victim was found, in the back parking lot between two bars.
After speaking with the bouncers, we became aware that there was an altercation over a cigarette outside of the back of the bar just prior to the gunshots.
At this point, we didn't know if the victim at the hospital was related to Darian Hardison, who was found deceased. So we're just kind of flying blind.
The camera right here and the outside door right here.
We did notice there was cameras inside the bar and outside the bar. It is imperative for us to get access to the security videos.
We go inside. We're shutting this down. Nobody leave.
Got an ID on you? No, I ain't got no ID. Did I get your ID yet? I'm the owner of the bar, so.
We located the owner, trying to get access to the camera. We have no idea what his relationship is to possibly the suspect or the victims. We try to play our cards kind of close to the chest at that point because we have no idea what we're dealing with until we can get a better look and see from the video. And the owner took us to the back to show us the security videos of the bar.
Police review the security footage.
Now, your security system runs constant, I'm assuming?
It should, yeah. It should be 24 hours a day.
But it was pretty clear that there's a time frame that's actually missing from the video. And the time frame that actually is missing is during the incident where the shooting occurred.
So when you arrived tonight, was everything functioning? And
honestly, I didn't check. My responsibility was to take care of the entry fees.
Okay. I'm just gonna go ahead and put it out there. Listen, I believe that somebody tampered with your video system, okay? I believe I'm gonna be able to prove that. Just to let you know, we are gonna take the video system itself, okay?
Okay.
So at that point, we're pretty confident that someone tampered with this video to try to delete or erase the portion of the video that showed the shooting occur.
The question is, who has access to the bar videos? People can do those with their cell phones now. You can have access. There's been people in and out of that back office. We have no idea how many people have access to it. It could be our shooter intentionally deleted the video, but it's extremely frustrating because that's a key piece of evidence that is in jeopardy now.
At that point, we took the hard drives, we took everything we figured we needed back to our office so that we can have some detectives that specialize in that stuff take a better look at it and see if the portions of the video are really gone. It was very important to get that video to try to see if we can figure out who did this.
Detectives reach out to the hospital to check on the status of the surviving gunshot victim.
We did learn that his first name is actually Derek. Derek was highly intoxicated and he was not very cooperative with the officers that were at the hospital with him. He did state that he does know Darian Hardison that he was with him that night. All they could really tell us is what he had an incident with somebody. They pulled out a gun and shot at them. At that point, we didn't tell him that Darian was deceased. So after we had spoke to Derek, he had indicated that he definitely was at the bar. So we did have some patrol officers try to check his flight path.
Our guy was way up.
I heard he was being difficult, right?
No, he was way up by Main and Wilbur.
But he wasn't telling you guys nothing?
He wasn't saying much. He was in a lot of pain. He was like, you know what I mean? He wasn't doing much.
Me and Cunningham were checking the flight path of the one victim that you guys saw. The other neighbor thinks there might have been another person running with him, so we're just checking the area, make sure there's not another body down.
This is a long crime scene. I saw his footprints in there. I think he went this way, and then for whatever reason, you said he was found up here, right? So this is where
he's found. This is where he towards that sign up there. So he went back across the street. I just wondered if he had a gun on him.
Patrol officers did check that area to see if maybe Derek stashed a gun or dropped anything else.
You got it.
Never mind. See that red thing? That's what I was wondering, but I don't think, never mind.
What, blood?
No, it's a leaf. I thought that was a handle. See where that red leaf is?
Oh, yeah.
See what I'm saying? I thought I had it.
They were able to find a white t-shirt that had some blood on it. We later determined that that was Derek's, and we also determined that the witness that seen somebody running from the scene actually saw Derek running, as he's being shot at. So all we found in his flight path was the t-shirt he shed after he was shot. No weapon, nothing on Derek at all.
Back at the station, investigators begin putting together the pieces of the mystery.
The following morning, I actually went to the autopsy, and the medical examiner was able to determine that a single gunshot wound that actually entered his upper right arm, went through his chest cavity, struck his heart, nicked his liver and his lung, and then exited out of the left side. So it was one single gunshot that actually killed Darian Hardison. Right now, we had a lot of little pieces, but we didn't have a full story of actually what had occurred yet.
As detectives hunt for the truth behind Darian's murder, his family struggles to cope with their monumental loss.
Darian called me that night and he wanted me to go out with him. And I told him, no, I'm about to just stay in tonight, bro. I don't feel good. So he was like, all right. And I'm just like, I love you, bro. Be safe. He was like, I love you too. Then that's the last time I talked to him. I woke up the next day to some missed calls from his current girlfriend. And she was like, have you heard from Darian? As soon as she called me, I had a bad feeling. I already knew something was wrong. I seen that there was a shooting at the club that he was at. So I just knew. That night changed my life forever. I haven't been the same since. I think about not going every day. I wish I would have went. I wish I could have changed something.
The night that Darian passed away, I was actually supposed to go with him as well. I ended up changing my mind. Darian was an introvert. He didn't like to go out much, so this was a little bit out of his element that night, but he ended up going and getting murdered. I ended up receiving a phone call the next day that the coroner had his body, and I literally fell to the floor. I could not even handle it. The impact that my brother's death had on me was absolutely devastating. I'm still not right. Why him?
One day into the investigation, detectives gain access to the missing surveillance video.
We were aware that somebody had intentionally deleted the footage that contained all the key evidence from our homicide. And likely we'll never find out who deleted it. It's extremely frustrating, but it's not really an issue anymore because we have recovered the video. But if there was any chance at all that BCI was going to be able to come up with something, we were going to send it off. So we did.
They were able to recover about 90 to 95% of the deleted security video. At that point, that was the biggest missing piece that we figured we needed that would help propel this investigation to lead us to a suspect.
The feeling that you get when you get word that it's come back and that you have that evidence. I mean, I was called at home. I called Detective Kennedy at home. We came into work on our off time just because we could not wait to see that video. Now your first thought is, okay, we've got a chance.
There were several different camera views. One of them faces the back door where everybody's entering. There's also one that's in the stairwell, showing everybody coming in and out of the bar. And there's several cameras that actually are inside on the bar side and then on the dance floor side. From the one camera view, you could actually see two guys standing outside the back door. One of them matches the description of Derek, the surviving victim. He is a taller male. And then the other gentleman had on a dark hoodie, and that one appeared to be Darian, our homicide victim. And they were outside by a little short wall, and it looked like they were smoking a cigarette. And then you see another gentleman come up the stairs, come out the back door, and after maybe 20 seconds or so, you see him come back in and approaches people on the dance floor. You see one of the females, she goes over and picks up her purse, brings it back over to him. They're kind of in a huddle, and you see her hand him something from her purse. At that point, our suspect quickly starts to walk away from the dance floor. He goes back up the staircase, and as soon as he goes through the doorway, you see flashes that we assume were from the gun fire, and you see everybody start to react. The security guards kind of duck in, and then that's when you see the suspect turn to come back in the bar, and he's confronted on the staircase by his four friends, and they're waving for him, let's go, and they grab him and they all leave the scene.
The video didn't end up being the magic bullet to solve the case. It really gave us a great place to start. We couldn't make a definitive ID on the shooter from the video, but we were able to hone in on a group of his friends or people that he seemed to be hanging out with, and we had some really good shots of them. We knew if we can figure out who they are, they're going to eventually tell us who he is.
We knew that the female on the dance floor handed our suspect something from her purse. We're assuming at that point it was a gun. So it was really important for us to try to locate them to find out what their story was, how they were involved. We're pretty confident the man that we seen coming down the stairs in the sweatshirt and the baseball hat was our suspect, and he was the shooter that was involved in the homicide of Darian Hardison. That with an armed and dangerous shooter on the loose, we needed to get him off the streets of Akron fast.
Armed with the surveillance footage, detectives come up with an unconventional plan to find the suspect caught on camera.
We have video of our shooter. There's some identifiable characteristics of our shooter, but there's a problem if you put that video out to the public and then later on someone says, I know who your shooter is, and you show a photo array and have them pick him out. Well, we're never gonna know if they're picking that person out of the photo array based on the picture we put out or what they actually saw. So there's a strategy in not releasing suspect information to the public so that you don't ruin future witness statements. Luckily, in this case, we had 4 other people that we could put out and enlist the public's help in solving this crime. When you start putting people on the 6 o'clock news, people's family members see them, and next thing you know, the phone's ringing.
Investigators' media strategy works. 2 individuals, Tarika and Tommy, come forward as witnesses.
It was pretty clear from the video that they definitely knew who the suspect was. So our goal at that point is to gain as much information from them as possible. We knew we're already behind the 8 ball at that point because they already had time to discuss what their stories would be. But if they're separate in different interview rooms, we have a better chance of getting more of an honest statement from them. So the first one that we interviewed was Tarika, and it was pretty clear to us that she didn't want to be there.
There's a reason why you're down here. There's a reason why your photo's out there. We just want to get your side of the story, okay?
I literally don't even remember. I was so drunk. I don't remember nothing. I don't even remember being there.
Now listen, you're likely gonna get yourself arrested with stuff like that. You come with the guy, you leave with the guy. We know you know who he is.
I don't know who he is.
Okay, he's with you all night. You know exactly who he is.
I don't know who he is. We all was at the bar together. It was a lot of people.
Yeah, but you want just another dude at the bar. That guy's with you.
Yeah.
He's a friend.
Yeah, I was drunk. I was friendly with everybody.
Well, that's not what the video shows, though. That's not what the video shows. The video shows your core group of people that you were with, that you arrived with, that you were on the dance floor with, that you left with, which includes this gentleman right here, who's going to end up catching a murder charge. And what's going to end up happening is you're going to catch a complicity to commit murder.
I do not know him.
She obviously wasn't intoxicated to the point where she just had no idea what went on. So at that point, it becomes a negotiation, and she was already involved. She was on video. She clearly knew who this person was. You get into the area where, okay, now you're making the decision to lie to the police to stop us from solving a murder. There's no way out of it except for by telling the truth.
It wasn't until she realized she could be going to jail that she started giving us a little bit more information.
I don't tell what I remember. When they said it was a shooting, they had to come get us off the dance floor and tell us that it was time to go. I literally didn't even hear no gunshots. I know we all did go out, but that's all I remember is go out. It was me, Tierra, Tommy, Bizzo, and Lucky.
Who's Bizzo?
That's Bizzo.
Okay.
Give me Bizzo's actual name.
I think Quentin.
And we asked her who the other individual was in the photos, who was our suspect. She kind of danced around it, but then she said that, you know, that's somebody she knows as Bizzle. We pressed her on it, and she stated, okay, well, his name's Quentin. So at that point, we didn't know if she was being honest or not, because she was very evasive on a lot of her questions.
Now we're interviewing Tommy, Tarika's brother, and we're trying to confirm what Tarika's told us, maybe get a little more information about our shooter.
We just need to be honest with us.
I mean, this isn't like a theft case. I mean, this is a murder and a felonious assault.
I understand.
You know?
Who was that person pictured at the top with you? You know who it is, dude. Don't even.
I mean, I've seen him around.
No, no.
I don't know his name. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, you know his name. We're gonna end up putting you in another room and throwing a handcuff on you. You're either gonna be honest at this point or you're not.
I don't know his name.
It ain't worth it. It ain't worth it.
I'm trying to tell you, I don't know his name.
Yes, you do.
No, I don't.
Yes,
everything.
You know, listen. You know who he is, and you're trying to play games, and you're gonna get yourself arrested. And don't do it.
I don't know his real name. His rap name is Scissors.
Now, if you tell me this guy's actual name, I'm gonna let you go. If you don't, I'm not.
I promise you, I don't know his actual name. I promise you, I don't. If I did, I would have gave it to you. I wouldn't have gave y'all his rap name and not his real name.
How would you get in touch with him?
I just want an honest answer.
How it is, like I'm still gotta watch my back, and I don't know what to do, kill me or anything. Like, you know what I'm saying? So.
As we pressed him, he said, "Oh well, his name is SZA. He's a rapper." We knew that wasn't true. As we're interviewing him, Tommy just seemed like he was scared. And that's a big obstacle that we have to overcome in law enforcement, is people are afraid to be labeled as a snitch. They're afraid that somebody's gonna come after them and hurt them if they talk to the police.
We try to convince people that the quickest way to be safe is to have the shooter in custody. If the person's still out there, that's a lot more worrisome than when they're at the county jail locked up and they can't get to you anymore.
Well, when we get there, we go to the bar. Star and Razan, they split off to go somewhere. and we all at the bar.
Who's Star?
That's the one that's over there.
That's your
Terica.
sister?
That's Terica.
Who's Lazan?
That's the other one in the picture.
So as we're interviewing Tommy, he ends up identifying another unknown individual from the surveillance video that is seen handing something to our shooter. He gives us the name of Lazan, and that's someplace else that we can go. Our next mission is to get Lazan in an interview room as quickly as we possibly can.
So after the interview with Tommy and Terica, we did have a potential first name and nicknames that they both had for the suspect. And we also had identified the other female that was with them, who was Lazan.
Detectives tracked down a current address for Lazan and bring her into the station for questioning.
We were able to come up with a phone number for Lazan. I gave her a call, and she was not super excited to talk to me. And with the video evidence we have of her handing something over, we were very confident that the gun transaction took place right there in front of the camera. So it became even more important to get her in as quickly as we could.
So during the interview with Lazan, she was kind of all over the place. She said she was drunk. So we continued to press her on those because we knew she was withholding information for a homicide case. This wasn't like a theft. I mean, this was serious. Somebody lost their life.
Thing number one is, this entire incident is on videotape. Everything we're going to be asking you about, we already know because it's on video.
I'm willing to tell you everything that I know personally. I don't know much, and I was drunk out of my mind. I know who did, but I just feel like I'm being put into a compromising position, and I feel like if I'm going to go to jail, what is the point of me even saying anything?
Because your cooperation is going to have a lot to do with how long you stay there.
It was kind of clear from the video too that she was pretty intoxicated dancing on the dance floor. She said she wanted to try to tell us what happened. She wanted to be honest.
So we were drinking, kicking in. It's a little blurry to me, but I remember me and QB were dancing.
You and who?
The suspect.
What's his name?
Well, I call him QB. Whatever y'all had his name as, I don't know. That's just what we call him. I promise you, I didn't have no gun. I know that. For 100% fact.
Well, I mean, the video shows what it shows.
So what am I being charged with again?
It's complicity to commit felonious assault and for bringing a gun into a bar.
She denies that she brought a gun into the bar and handed it to our suspect. As we're talking to Lazan more, she does give us another nickname for the suspect.
QB, they call him Q-Bizzle.
She said Bizzle. She had his number actually in her phone, and so she gave us his phone number. So she confirmed what the others said about the first name possibly being Quentin. So she gave us enough information that would help during the investigation. We did still charge her with bringing a firearm in a liquor establishment for carrying a concealed weapon and some other charges, and that was based off the video footage that we felt showed that, what she did hand him was a firearm.
Detectives searched their databases for the nicknames provided by the witnesses and cross-reference them with the first name, Quentin. They're able to identify an individual by the name of Quentin Tyler.
Feeling that our case is getting more and more solid and that we're ready to go. We know at this point we have the right guy. Now we've got to find him and get him into custody.
It's then detectives receive a surprise visit from a jailhouse inmate named Anthony, who claims to have information about the case.
Anthony had informed us that somebody had contacted him, and our suspect, Quentin Tyler, wanted to hire him as a hitman to go after two of our witnesses in the homicide of Darren Hardison.
You're Anthony? You're Detective Kennedy.
We brought this inmate from the county over to the station and interviewed him to find out what he knew about the homicide and if that would help us during our investigation.
So, I understand you got some information reference that. Can you tell me what's going on with that?
Long story short, I was approached by a family member of Quentin's to take a murder for hire for 2 of the witnesses that said testified.
Okay. Who is he to Quentin?
He's a cousin.
So how did he approach you?
Gave me a call. And he said he wanted to meet up. His grandmother stays. He said, well, we want you to do something. 2 of the witnesses, they need to get ice. He said, this is a thief for me. He pulls out $2,500 and just leaves him in the seat. He said, damn, we need you to do this. We know you can do it. And I attempted to give it back to him. I said, I don't want nothing to do with this. It's hot. I'm like, I ain't got time for it in my life. Like, come on, man. Can't nobody else get it done like you. Like, man, I'm cool, man. He wouldn't take the money. He left him a piece of paper that had supposedly Tarika's address. Tarika was one of the supposed witnesses.
Anthony had told us that Quentin had put a hit out on Tarika and Tommy, 2 of the people that we had interviewed earlier on in the investigation.
He was like, man, I'm gonna make sure you get $5,000 as soon as you get out Tuesday. He said, man, get Tarika, get Tommy. So he said Tommy would kind of be hard to get, but he said if I get Tarika, it wouldn't be no issue getting Tommy.
Okay.
So that was kind of the extent of that conversation. I kind of was a yes man and agreed just to get the conversation over with.
At that point, it became extremely important that we find Quentin Tyler right away and get him off the streets before anybody else got hurt. Within moments, you can have a homicide like this where you're so close to bringing it to resolution, and then you have 2 more people that are dead. You've got a double homicide to work along with that now, and it was very important that we didn't allow that to happen.
Detectives issue an arrest warrant for Quentin Tyler when he unexpectedly turns himself in to police.
I was able to get Quentin into an interview room, and we had a discussion.
My strategy when we first went in is based off the video, we knew that our suspect was left-handed because he pulled a gun out of his left pocket, and after the shooting you can clearly see him put an object that resembled a gun back in his left pocket. Going into the interview room, my first thing I was going to do was I knew he was cuffed to our table with his left hand. Because he has an unusual name, my strategy was to hand him the notebook and a pen and ask him to write his name, since it's unusual how it's spelled on a piece of paper. He's like, I can, I'm cuffed to the table. And I'm like, oh, you're left-handed. And he's like, yeah, I'm left-handed. So he doesn't know that I'm confirming that my shooter was left-handed.
Can you just give me a little bit of rundown on, what happened that night, where you were at?
I don't know. I'll be out with my family. I'll go out here once in a while, but.
So what if I said that we have a video with you on it, coming in the bar, getting patted down, arguing about paying the $20?
I don't know about that.
You don't know? Can I see the tattoos on your hand?
Yeah.
What's this one here?
No, this is just a flame. That's why I let them know.
It's kind of funny because there's a guy in the video with the same tattoo on the night of the homicide.
I don't know. It's kind of funny.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because the guy's actually walking down the steps coming in the bar with the camera facing him, and it's clear that the tattoo's on his hand that matches yours. I mean, I'm gonna be honest, there's a lot of things going against you. I mean, I want you to be honest with me.
Being honest as I can, I have no clue. I'm shocked like everybody else is. I don't know what's going on. I'm shocked.
After talking to 2 our witnesses, we're confident that Quentin Tyler was our suspect. I mean, we had the video that showed him coming and going, down the stairwell of the bar, him going up the stairs, the flash from the gun, him turning around, putting the object back in his left pocket and trying to walk back down the stairs. There was no denying that Quentin Tyler was our suspect. So he was charged with the homicide and he was sent to Summit County Jail after our interview with him. Quentin committed a cold act of violence that ultimately cost Darian Hardison his life, and it was all over something silly. Derek and Darian were both outside, just minding their own business, when our suspect Quentin came up the stairs asked Derek for a cigarette, and Derek called him a broke bum. So it upset Quentin enough where he went back into the bar, had a conversation with Lazan, was able to get a gun, came back up. As soon as he broke the threshold of the door, he immediately started firing at Derek. Derek and Darian both took off running. Unfortunately, Darren sustained a fatal wound, and he collapsed about 75 to 100 yards south of the bar. And Derek ran down the road and was found by a responding officer. But Darren lost his life at 26 years old over something senseless as a minor altercation over a cigarette.
It started out as an uphill climb, but we got the video, and that gave us a chance. That's what you're praying for when you get a case that you don't have a lot of evidence at the beginning. You just need that one break, and you're just like, just give me a chance. If you give me the chance, I'll close it.
I worked just as hard for him as I would for my own family, and finding out that he had a twin brother and a sister and a family at home, I can never bring him back, but to try to hopefully give them a little bit of closure and a little bit of peace of mind that the person that's responsible is now paying for it does feel good.
After a week-long trial, Quentin Tyler is found guilty of murder and felonious assault. He is sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 23 years.
I feel like in a way justice has been served, but the pain that me and my family have felt from this loss will never be matched, ever. The only way I feel like it would ever be even is if he could experience a loss the way we have, if he could feel what we feel. I want Darian to be remembered as an intelligent, kind, strong, ambitious, great father, great person. I miss him checking on me on a daily basis. I miss him pulling up to my house to just talk to me or yell at me or tell me what I need to do next in my life. I miss his guidance.
Yeah, there ain't a day that goes by that I don't think about him or get sad about it. It'll just pop up at different times. Sometimes when I'm driving, I'll hear a certain song that'll remind me of him, and I'll just start crying. Just anything that reminds me of him, you know, seeing his kids, seeing my kids, and seeing him and my kids. Just everything. I mean, I'll tell him I love him, you know. I'm sorry I wasn't there. I should have went with him. I should have been there with you. Like, we should have both died.
It started with a call that no one in the small Florida town ever wanted to receive. A night in the summer of 1997 when the humidity pressed against the streets like a living thing, thick and suffocating, and the sound of cicadas masked everything except the ringing of the emergency line. A teenager had vanished. No note, no sign of struggle, just gone, as if the earth had swallowed her whole. The dispatcher's voice trembled slightly over the phone, the words almost mundane against the gravity of the unknown. We have a missing person report. She was last seen near the old pier. That pier had a reputation. Parents had warned their children. It was a shadow in the daytime, a menace at night. The boardwalk rotted, the paint peeled, and beneath it, the water churned quietly, hiding secrets it had no intention of revealing. Officers arrived within minutes. The smell of salt and decay hit first, then the darkness. Flashlights cut through the fog, illuminating the uneven planks, the shadows of broken rails, the stain of years of neglect. They called her name into the night, their voices swallowed almost immediately by the wind coming off the Gulf. Each echo seemed to twist and shift, never quite returning, leaving only the oppressive sensation that someone, or something, was listening. Footsteps crunched over scattered debris, and a single shoe, half buried in sand and salt, became the first tangible sign that she had been there, that she had existed in that place in that moment, and that something had taken her beyond reach. The community reacted in waves, first disbelief, then panic. Flyers appeared overnight on every lamppost, every telephone pole, every corner store bulletin board. Her photo, smiling, frozen in the innocence of 16, stared back at neighbors and strangers alike. News vans arrived, lights glaring into windows, cameras broadcasting the town's fear to anyone who would watch. Questions multiplied faster than answers. Did she get into a car? Was someone following her? Did she leave voluntarily? Everyone knew that the first 48 hours were crucial. Everyone knew that with each passing moment, hope diminished. Yet time in Florida summers moved with a lethargy that made each minute feel like an hour, each hour like a day. Detectives pored over her home, her room, her diary, her phone records. Nothing seemed out of place except the absence of her. Her family described her routine. Her friends recalled laughter and secrets shared under streetlights. The ordinary life that had been abruptly interrupted. There were gaps, but they seemed minor, almost negligible, until considered in the context of disappearance. Then they became frightening, potential threads leading nowhere, hints of movement and risk that could not be traced. The local police worked tirelessly, yet for every lead followed, 10 more dead-ended, leaving behind only the ache of uncertainty and the constant hum of questions that would not stop. Witnesses came forward slowly, one by one. A jogger remembered seeing a figure in a dark hoodie near the pier just after sunset, a man whose features were obscured but whose presence was unsettling. Another claimed to hear a scream carried across the water, brief, indistinct, then silence. A fisherman reported a car parked too long along the edge of the sand, headlights off, engine quiet, as if someone had paused deliberately, waiting. These accounts conflicted, overlapped, and dissolved under scrutiny, yet each planted a seed of suspicion, a phantom trail that refused to vanish. The case was becoming a puzzle, pieces scattered across a landscape of shadow and salt, with no guarantee that any of them fit together. As weeks turned into months, frustration mounted. Volunteers combed the mangroves, searching for footprints that vanished under tidal shifts, calling out in vain to hear responses from someone who could not answer. Drones and early satellite imagery were attempted, scanning the canopy and coastline, but nothing surfaced. Every discovery seemed to loop back into the same place, uncertainty. Her parents held vigils, sleepless nights blurring into each other, candles flickering against the wind, their hands folded in prayer that yielded no answers. The community oscillated between hope and despair. Every day, a reminder that life could change in an instant and remain incomprehensible for decades. Police records showed a string of small crimes in the surrounding area during that period. Minor thefts, fights, a few assaults, but nothing linked directly. Yet detectives knew the feeling of patterns before patterns existed, sensing repetition, glimpsing danger lurking behind ordinary events. Every time a door opened, every time a neighbor remembered something small, a shadow of possibility crept in. There were whispers of a local man with a history of harassment, a figure known for his controlling tendencies, someone who could move quietly, disappear easily into Florida's humid nights. Leads like these were investigated relentlessly, but always the trail went cold. Interviews were recorded and re-recorded, alibis checked and rechecked, yet nothing concretely tied him, or anyone else, to the girl's disappearance. The term cold case had not yet been coined in the daily language of the department, but the concept existed palpably. Every unsolved lead, every witness who could not remember, every discarded or lost detail became part of a silent graveyard of evidence. Officers felt it in the weight of their notes, the lingering scent of salt in the air, the gaze of the pier as they drove past. Time, instead of clarifying, thickened around the investigation, obscuring paths and stretching days into years of unanswered questions. Over the following decade, technology advanced while the case remained static. DNA analysis emerged from laboratories, transforming the landscape of criminal investigations. Yet the samples collected in 1997 had suffered from improper storage, humidity, and decay. Detectives who remembered the original case watched with a mixture of hope and dread as laboratories attempted to extract what could be salvaged. Fingerprints, fibers, saliva traces, all were tested, retested, and often yielded nothing but frustration. Each failed attempt underscored the cruelty of time, its capacity to erase clarity while leaving questions indelibly etched in the minds of everyone involved. Despite the setbacks, some fragments persisted. A single strand of hair preserved in a small, folded envelope, unremarkable until examined decades later, revealed the faintest possibility of identification. A photograph, almost forgotten, caught a shadow behind the girl in the background, barely perceptible but suggesting the presence of someone else. It took years for analysts to enhance, to process, to see what the original I had missed. Slowly, painstakingly, the dormant pieces of a puzzle began to hint at form. Yet even as they aligned, the case remained stubbornly opaque, a testament to the enduring complexity of human behavior and the imperfection of memory. The community, too, evolved alongside the case. Children who had known the missing girl grew into adults, parents aged, neighbors moved or passed away, yet the absence persisted. Annual vigils became tradition, memorials carved into the psyche of the town, each retelling a reminder that life can be interrupted without reason, without warning, and without resolution. News outlets revisited the story occasionally, each anniversary marked by a subtle note of shock. Decades-old disappearance, still no answers, a secret locked in time. The fear, the bewilderment, the unresolved grief became woven into the cultural fabric of the town, unspoken yet deeply understood. Detectives who remained active in the department carried the case like a weight around their necks, a constant hum beneath the surface of daily activity. Every minor clue in other cases was compared against it, every unsolved report examined for echoes. The investigation became a touchstone, a reminder of patience and perseverance, the understanding that not all crimes reveal themselves on a timetable convenient to human expectation. The cold case defined procedures, influenced training, and became part of the unspoken ethos of the department. Diligence, restraint, and the relentless pursuit of answers, no matter how delayed. As the decades crept forward, the Florida 1997 cold case took on an almost mythic quality. It was discussed in training seminars, referenced in articles, and remembered by those who had lived through its initial panic. Each person who touched it left behind a trace of knowledge, a lesson in the intersection of human error, the passage of time, and the stubborn endurance of truth. The case was no longer simply about a missing girl. It was a living example of how secrets endure, how questions multiply, and how the search for justice can become a defining rhythm of both professional and personal life. And yet, for all the technology, all the memory, all the procedural advancements, the mystery remained. The girl had disappeared into the humid night, her presence now preserved only in photographs, in memories, in fragments of evidence painstakingly gathered and guarded. Time had not obliterated the possibility of answers. It had merely suspended them, creating a tension that lingered in the air like the dense Florida heat, pressing against every living thing with the constant, invisible weight of uncertainty. Every investigation, every tip, every technological breakthrough became a whisper of hope, a fragile thread leading back to a truth long denied, a secret decades in the making, waiting to be exposed. The pier stood as it always had, rotting planks, peeling paint, and water that concealed as much as it reflected. The wind off the Gulf whispered through the supports like voices from another time, carrying stories of absence, fear, and relentless human searching. Even after 20, 30 years, the place remained a locus of attention, a node in a web of memory and investigation that refused to dissipate. It demanded vigilance, demanded respect, demanded acknowledgement that some mysteries, once born, never fully rest. The Florida 1997 cold case, though unresolved, had begun its slow, inexorable transformation from a missing person file to a living testament of endurance, perseverance, and the unrelenting passage of secrets through time. Time had become both ally and adversary, each tick a reminder that truth can outlast fear and patience can outlast despair. And in the shadows of that pier, beneath the stars and the ceaseless hum of the cicadas, the story waited, quiet but unyielding, a whisper in the humid night air, insisting that nothing, not even decades, could fully erase what had once happened, what had been witnessed, and what demanded eventual revelation. The investigation trudged forward with the relentless weight of time pressing on every move. Each morning, detectives revisited the pier, combing the edges where sand met rotting wood, where the tide lapped and receded like the heartbeat of the past itself. They walked slowly, deliberately, imagining the night the girl had vanished, tracing invisible paths along the shoreline, replaying the evidence as though the boards, the water, the broken railings could speak if pressed. Each officer carried in their mind the echo of that night, the scream barely heard, the shadow moving just beyond recognition, the sensation of absence more palpable than presence. Neighbors recalled fleeting glimpses, brief impressions that at the time seemed inconsequential. A neighbor's light flickering in the early hours, a car parked too long, someone walking along the boardwalk at midnight. Each recollection was taken seriously, meticulously cataloged, and compared against the known timeline, yet none produced a clear connection. The town, once calm and familiar, now seemed layered with suspicion. Ordinary faces could conceal extraordinary actions. Every passerby might be witness or perpetrator. Fear became an invisible undertow, pulsing beneath the surface of everyday life. Inside the sheriff's department, the original case files lay in careful disarray. Pages yellowed with age, photographs faded, handwriting smudged by years of handling. Officers who had begun the investigation in 1997 now studied these records with fresh eyes, aided by new technology. Computers scanned logs, highlighted connections, and flagged discrepancies that had gone unnoticed in the era of pen and paper. Digital forensics offered glimpses of what had been lost. Phone records reconstructed, cell tower pings estimated, patterns emerging where once there had been only chaos. Yet even as patterns formed, the case remained stubbornly incomplete, a puzzle missing too many pieces. DNA analysis, barely in its infancy in 1997, became the focal point of renewed hope. Investigators revisited evidence collected that night: strands of hair, smudges on rails, fibers clinging to torn clothing. Labs worked meticulously to extract what they could, even as humidity and time had degraded samples beyond their original form. Each test carried both risk and possibility. A contaminated sample could mislead an investigation for decades, while a breakthrough could unravel years of frustration in an instant. The tension was palpable. Every technician knew that patience and precision were as vital as luck. As forensic methods improved, minor anomalies in the original investigation were reconsidered. Witness statements that once seemed contradictory were re-examined. Subtle inconsistencies now appeared significant. The girl's diary, long tucked away, offered glimpses of relationships, fears, and suspicions that had previously gone unnoticed. Entries hinted at a sense of unease, a suspicion of someone's presence, yet vague enough to avoid accusation. Investigators approached the words carefully, aware that interpretation could be subjective, yet realizing that small hints sometimes contain the key to understanding a complex event. The community's role remained central. Neighbors who had lived in fear returned cautiously to the conversation. Meetings were held, volunteers assisted in searches, tips were called in at all hours. Some were sincere, others misleading. Yet every lead was pursued with the understanding that in long unsolved cases, even false information could indirectly reveal truths. Law enforcement had learned over time that persistence often meant examining tangents, exploring unlikely angles, and never dismissing what initially seemed trivial. A discarded scrap of paper, a forgotten photograph, a casual comment in passing could hold a resonance years later. Years blurred together as detectives balanced the old case with current demands. New crimes, new victims, and new pressures crowded the workload, yet the cold case never disappeared. It hovered in the background, a constant reminder that justice is measured not in speed, but in endurance. Investigators often stayed late into the night, tracing leads, cross-referencing old reports, and revisiting the pier mentally even when physical access was impossible. Memory, both collective and individual, became a tool and a challenge. Human recollection faltered, yet some details remained etched with startling clarity. Psychological profiling added another layer of insight. Experts examined potential suspects, considering behavioral patterns, geographic familiarity, and timing. They speculated on motives, opportunity, and method, creating a map of possibilities that was as complex as it was incomplete. Each suspect brought new questions. Was the disappearance planned or opportunistic? Did the perpetrator know the girl, or was it random? Could the act have been impulsive, or was it calculated over months? The answers remained elusive, yet even speculation guided further investigation, shaping the lines of inquiry that might eventually converge on truth. Media coverage played its role in both sustaining and complicating the investigation. Newspapers and television networks revisited the story periodically, their reports sometimes stirring fresh memories, sometimes fueling rumor. The public's fascination with unresolved mysteries ensured that attention would never fully fade. For some, this provided pressure and motivation. For others, it was a constant reminder of failure, of gaps in the system, of the fragility of human oversight. Every anniversary brought renewed interest, rekindling both hope and tension. Over the decades, volunteers and amateur investigators contributed unexpectedly. People with local knowledge, access to aerial imagery, or technological skills not available to law enforcement occasionally submitted findings. Some proved valuable, others were dead ends. Yet the collective effort underscored a truth. In long unsolved cases, the boundaries between professional and civilian, official and unofficial, often blurred. Persistence was shared. Knowledge was cumulative. Every observation, however minor, could ripple forward decades later into revelation. Families endured the longest journey. The girl's parents, siblings, and friends carried the weight of uncertainty with relentless intensity. Their lives were defined by absence and speculation, each day balanced between hope and despair. Support groups, therapy sessions, and informal networks became critical, sustaining the fragile equilibrium of those who could not forget. Emotional endurance became as necessary as investigative persistence. They lived in a liminal space where every passing year was both an indictment of delay and a promise that answers could still arrive. Meanwhile, investigators relied increasingly on the intersection of old records and new technology. Computerized mapping, GIS, and digital cross-referencing allowed patterns to emerge in ways impossible in 1997. Historical phone data, combined with modern analytics, suggested potential timelines, travel paths, and even locations where the girl might have been held. Each hypothesis was tested carefully, evidence cross-checked, and assumptions scrutinized. The case evolved from a narrative of despair into one of cautious optimism, but optimism tempered by the reality of decades-long gaps in memory and data. The pier remained a focal point in the minds of investigators. Its physical presence, deteriorated yet resilient, symbolized both the fragility and persistence of evidence. Every plank, nail, and rail was imagined as a potential witness. Even as storms, tides, and time reshaped the landscape, the investigators' mental maps preserved what had been, what could have been, and what might yet be uncovered. The environment itself became a partner in reconstruction, its contours suggesting possible movements, exits, and concealments. As the investigation pressed forward, minor breakthroughs began to appear. A previously overlooked security camera, recordings misfiled in 1997, revealed shadows of movement near the pier, timing that could not be ignored. Forensic reanalysis of clothing fibers found at the scene suggested proximity to a vehicle frequently used by a local resident. Witnesses who had long claimed uncertainty suddenly remembered details under new questioning techniques. Each small revelation was both exciting and terrifying, for it suggested that the truth, long dormant, could finally be grasped, but also raised the stakes for those who had been hiding it all these years. The Florida 1997 cold case had become more than a single event. It was a measure of the human capacity for patience, diligence, and enduring grief. Investigators, families, and the community collectively participated in a long, uneasy conversation with time itself. Every discovery, every question, every analysis contributed to a growing narrative of eventual accountability. And yet, the sense of mystery persisted, a shadow stretched across decades, a reminder that even as answers emerged, the story was never truly complete until every hidden fragment had been uncovered, every secret exposed, and every question resolved beyond doubt. And so the pier waited, the streets hummed, the town carried on. The girl's absence remained a presence, shaping behavior, memory, and vigilance. Investigators continued their work, guided by the convergence of human determination and technological progress, each step bringing them closer to the day when the decades-old secret could no longer hide in the shadows. The cold case had transformed, evolving from a mystery frozen in 1997 to a living, breathing challenge of intellect, patience, and resolve. Its persistence was a silent testament to the enduring power of truth, waiting to be revealed against all odds, in the humid Florida nights where the story began and where it refused to end. The days turned into weeks, the weeks into months, and yet the Florida 1997 cold case remained a pulse in the heart of the town, a quiet, unyielding hum that refused to be ignored. The pier, warped and weathered, seemed almost alive under the humid sun. Every board a witness, every creak a subtle echo of the night the girl disappeared. Investigators returned again and again, retracing every possible path, speaking to old friends, former teachers, and anyone who might have glanced at something extraordinary and dismissed it as ordinary. Each conversation opened faint cracks in the wall of silence, subtle hints that, when combined, could form the skeleton of a truth that had remained hidden for decades. Technological advances became the lifeline of the investigation. What had been impossible in 1997, high-resolution satellite imagery, digital forensics, computer-enhanced surveillance footage, was now standard. Analysts scanned archival footage from local stores, traffic cameras, and private security systems, cross-referencing timelines with witness statements that had long been filed away. Patterns began to emerge, connections invisible to the human eye alone. A fleeting shadow in one video corresponded to the faint recollection of a neighbor. A license plate number, barely legible in a photo, suggested a vehicle that had not been accounted for. Every tiny lead carried the weight of decades, and every day spent analyzing them felt like stepping closer to a precipice that had been looming unseen for 20 years. Witness memory proved to be both fragile and revealing. Under careful questioning, some who had long claimed to forget details began to recall subtle actions. The man who lingered at the edge of a parking lot, a car, door slamming, a figure appearing briefly on the boardwalk and disappearing before it could be approached. Each recollection was a thread, delicate and uncertain, but when woven together, it began to form a tapestry of the night. Investigators had to move cautiously, aware that the human mind could create false patterns. Yet they could not ignore what rose to the surface, because in cold cases, even a faint impression could become a breakthrough if treated with precision. The girl's family remained central to the investigation, their persistence unyielding. Parents who had aged visibly, their faces etched with the strain of years without answers, were drawn into every procedural update. They combed through documents, photographs, and interviews, searching for patterns or clues the investigators might have missed. Their intuition, born from love and loss, guided the search in subtle ways. They knew the difference between distraction and insight, between trivial observation and something pregnant with significance. Their involvement was both emotional and practical. The case had become as much theirs as it had ever been the police department's. Psychological profiling became a cornerstone of renewed efforts. Experts examined potential suspects through the lens of long-term behavioral patterns, the psychology of impulsive versus calculated crime, and the geographical familiarity necessary to navigate the peer and surrounding areas without detection. They speculated on opportunity and motive, weighing every possible scenario. Was this a crime of passion, a premeditated abduction, or a random act? Were the perpetrator's movements familiar, deliberate, or opportunistic? Every theory was tested against the evidence, the witness statements, and the tiniest traces of DNA or fiber, yet certainty remained elusive. The deeper the analysis went, the more the case revealed the complexity of human behavior and the subtlety of long-buried crimes. Community involvement remained both a resource and a challenge. Tips arrived from far and wide, some well-intentioned, others misleading. Volunteers scoured the mangroves, the piers, and the neighborhoods. Each tip was followed up, each sighting examined, because even a false lead could indirectly reveal truths by exposing patterns, inconsistencies, or hidden connections. Public vigilance, though imperfect, created a network of observation that could not have existed in 1997. The social fabric of the town itself became a participant in the investigation, a living repository of memory, fear, and hope, where the past was never entirely past. Every piece of evidence was scrutinized anew. Clothing fibers, previously stored without proper preservation, were re-examined. Hairs, dust particles, and smudges on railings were subjected to the latest DNA amplification techniques that could extract usable information from decades-old samples. Laboratories worked meticulously, knowing that contamination, however minute, could derail decades of work. The stakes were enormous. A single breakthrough could unravel the mystery, while a misstep could set the investigation back irreparably. Each lab session, each analysis, became an exercise in patience, discipline, and precision, a battle against both time and entropy. The media played a complex role. News coverage kept this story alive, reminding the community and the investigators of the stakes, while also exposing them to scrutiny and pressure. Documentaries revisited the case, journalists re-interviewed witnesses, and online forums debated every detail with a fervor that was both frustrating and informative. Public interest ensured that the cold case would not fade into obscurity, but it also complicated investigative strategies, as rumor and speculation sometimes obscured fact. For the detectives, the challenge was to sift through layers of noise, to maintain focus on what was verifiable, and to remain steadfast against the emotional tide of public expectation. Internally, the sheriff's department underwent its own evolution. Procedures were revised, evidence storage protocols updated, and officers trained in techniques unimaginable in 1997. Every piece of documentation was digitized, cross-referenced, and preserved against future technological advances. The lessons of the Florida cold case informed every decision, every approach to both old and new investigations. The department had learned that patience, meticulous care, and relentless attention to detail could bridge decades, allowing justice to arrive even when delayed by the inexorable march of time. The girl's story, once a simple missing person report, now wove through multiple narratives: law enforcement, family, community, technology, psychology, and media. Each strand intersected, creating a complex web in which the smallest observation could illuminate the greatest mysteries. The case became a measure of the human capacity to endure uncertainty, to act decisively in the face of incomplete information, and to maintain faith that persistence and precision would eventually yield truth. The pier, the water, the mangroves, all retained echoes of that night, subtle cues that required interpretation, imagination, and patience to unlock. Forensic breakthroughs, when they began to arrive, were incremental yet profound. A DNA sample that had yielded nothing decades earlier now offered a partial match, a thread leading to a person of interest. Fibers once overlooked were traced to a specific vehicle. Security footage, barely perceptible to the human eye, revealed movements that suggested a calculated approach to abduction. Each discovery, however small, was a triumph against time, a reminder that the past is never irretrievable, only waiting for the right tools and the right minds to reveal it. The tension in the town remained palpable. Residents moved with an awareness of the past, their memories of that humid summer night etched indelibly into their perception of space and time. Parents spoke softly to their children about danger and caution, recalling the vanished girl as both warning and guide. The pier was no longer just wood and water. It was a marker of fear, a locus of collective memory, a physical reminder of a crime that refused to be erased. Even as life continued, the absence remained present, shaping behavior, thought, and vigilance. Years of investigation had changed the investigators themselves. They had developed a discipline that combined patience with urgency, a sensitivity to nuance with a refusal to be misled by appearances. They had learned that cold cases require more than technology. They demand endurance, intuition, and an intimate understanding of human behavior over decades. Each conversation, each observation, each piece of evidence contributed to a mental map that had grown ever more intricate, capable of capturing subtle connections invisible to the untrained eye. The Florida 1997 cold case had evolved into a living testament of human resilience. It tested families, communities, and law enforcement agencies alike. It revealed the limits of memory, the durability of evidence, and the transformative power of new technology when combined with patient, meticulous investigation. Each passing year added complexity, but also possibility. The case was no longer simply about the missing girl. It was about the enduring need for vigilance, the persistence of hope, and the certainty that even decades-old secrets can be uncovered when humanity refuses to forget. As detectives continue their work, revisiting old scenes and reinvestigating old leads, they understood that every small victory was part of a larger mosaic. Each DNA match, each witness recollection, each forensic enhancement brought them closer to exposing the decades-old truth. The story, once fragmented and elusive, began to take shape under the careful attention of those unwilling to abandon the search. The cold case was not just a memory. It was an ongoing process, a challenge to time, and a testament to the unyielding pursuit of justice, no matter how long it takes. Even as the humid Florida nights persisted, carrying the scent of salt and the chorus of cicadas, the pier stood as a sentinel. Its shadows held the memory of absence. Its boards echoed with the footsteps of the past, and the water whispered a constant reminder that time, though relentless, cannot destroy truth. The investigation pressed forward, each revelation a strike against the wall of secrecy, each small breakthrough a beacon of hope. The Florida 1997 cold case, decades in the making, was slowly but inexorably moving toward its resolution, and the town, the investigators, and the girl's family felt the weight of anticipation, the tension of long-suspended justice, and the unshakable knowledge that secrets, no matter how deeply buried, always leave traces waiting to be discovered. The clock ticked, the tide rolled, and the story, patient as the water against the pier, waited to be told. Even as the investigation persisted into the early 2000s, the Florida 1997 cold case retained an uncanny grip on the minds of everyone involved. The pier, rotting under relentless sun and salt-laden wind, had become both symbol and witness, a silent monument to absence. Investigators retraced steps, imagining the girl's movements, her intentions, the potential paths that had led her to vanish. Every board creaked beneath their weight, Every shadow seemed to pulse with memory. Every gust of humid wind whispered fragments of a night long past, waiting to be understood. The investigation demanded not just diligence, but imagination, the capacity to see the unseen, to interpret the gaps where time had erased certainty. Families continued to haunt the periphery of the investigation, carrying memories that refused to fade. Parents who had once been young and vigorous now carried age and worry etched into their skin, their eyes perpetually scanning, their minds retracing sequences over and over. Siblings who had been children at the time of disappearance grew into adults, the perception of safety and trust forever altered. They pieced together stories from old photographs, forgotten letters, and conversations long since filed away, hoping to spot inconsistencies, anomalies, or hidden clues. Each memory was a potential key, each recollection a fragile thread in a web that stretched across decades. Technological advances transformed the investigation in subtle but profound ways. Security footage that had once been grainy and unintelligible was digitally enhanced. Computerized mapping allowed patterns in witness reports to be visualized across the town's landscape, highlighting inconsistencies and coincidences previously invisible. Every minor anomaly, an overlooked timestamp, a vague recollection, a single fingerprint, was re-examined, cross-referenced, and fed into databases that could detect correlations no human mind could perceive alone. In the quiet hum of computers and labs, the past began to emerge with a clarity that had once seemed impossible. Though the picture remained incomplete, tantalizingly close, yet maddeningly elusive. Witness statements, revisited with new techniques, offered unexpected insights. Individuals who had dismissed events as insignificant now recalled fleeting shadows, anomalous noises, and subtle movements that aligned with other testimonies. The jogger who had passed the pier at dusk remembered a car idling just beyond view. The fisherman who once claimed not to see anything recalled a figure standing unnaturally still at the water's edge. Each recollection required verification, careful analysis, and skepticism. Yet together they began to map an invisible architecture of the night the girl vanished. The psychological profile of a potential perpetrator became increasingly refined. Experts considered opportunity, familiarity with local terrain, patterns of mobility, and behavioral tendencies consistent with the abduction. Was it a person known to the victim, or a stranger with predatory instincts? Was it calculated or impulsive? Could the act have been facilitated by an accomplice, or entirely solo? The investigation's renewed rigor demanded that every scenario be rigorously tested against the evidence, creating a mental lattice where probabilities could be weighted and contradictions resolved. Community vigilance became an unexpected resource. Citizens, some long gone from the area, reached out with observations previously unshared. An old friend remembered a vehicle parked for an unusual length of time near the pier. A neighbor recalled a fleeting conversation that, in retrospect, hinted at discomfort or fear. Each tip was meticulously recorded, assessed, and integrated into the broader investigation. In cold cases, even false leads could be valuable. They could illuminate behavioral patterns, timelines, or overlooked spaces where crucial evidence might exist. The community's collective memory became a repository of both hope and frustration, a living instrument of investigation. Meanwhile, forensic science continued to push boundaries. DNA amplification methods had improved dramatically since 1997, enabling analysis of samples previously deemed unusable. Fibers, hairs, and smudges were tested repeatedly, producing fragments of information that hinted at a perpetrator's identity. Each breakthrough was painstakingly documented, every procedure double-checked, aware that decades-old evidence could easily be compromised. Success required precision, patience, and an understanding that time was both an adversary and a silent ally. It eroded clarity, but preserved fragments waiting for human attention to decode. Media coverage played a complex, dual role. Public attention kept the case alive, prompting witnesses to come forward and tips to emerge. Yet it also heightened pressure, creating false leads, rumor, and occasional public hysteria. Journalists revisited the story, producing anniversary pieces that stirred memory and fear in equal measure. The investigators navigated a delicate balance, welcoming information while protecting the integrity of the case. Public interest became a double-edged sword, a force that could both aid and obstruct, depending on the discernment with which it was channeled. The pier remained the symbolic and practical heart of the investigation. Every creaking plank, every weathered post, every tide-swept board was scrutinized mentally by investigators, imagined as a map of movement, concealment, and opportunity. Even the water, with its constant churning, was considered a witness of sorts, preserving traces of what had passed across its surface. Investigators imagined the sequence of events with painstaking care. How she might have walked, where she could have turned, what unseen hands or eyes might have guided her path. The environment became a silent collaborator, revealing its secrets only to those patient and perceptive enough to listen. Over the years, procedural practices evolved, informed by the lessons of the case. Evidence handling protocols were updated, ensuring that future investigations would not suffer the losses or degradation that had complicated the original work. Every minor discovery, every technique trialed, became part of a broader institutional knowledge, a standard of diligence that would endure long after the case's resolution. The cold case had become a teacher, shaping a generation of investigators in patience, precision, and the understanding that justice requires both immediate action and long-term foresight. The girl's family endured an ever-present tension between hope and despair. Each breakthrough, no matter how minor, stirred waves of emotion. Relief that progress was possible, anxiety about confronting the truth, fear that the final revelation could be more devastating than imagined. Annual anniversaries became markers of both grief and perseverance, moments when the town collectively reflected on absence, the passage of time, and the enduring quest for answers. Their vigilance never waned, providing both emotional and practical support for the investigative process, their involvement an anchor in a turbulent sea of uncertainty. As investigative methods grew more sophisticated, previously overlooked anomalies gained significance. A misfiled note, a small fingerprint, an ambiguous eyewitness account, once dismissed, were reevaluated in light of modern forensic techniques. Each discovery was tested rigorously, compared against the body of existing evidence, and weighed against decades of accumulated knowledge. Slowly, patterns emerged where there had previously been only chaos. Movements aligned, timelines were clarified, potential suspects narrowed. The case, once frozen in frustration, began to take shape in ways both subtle and profound, revealing a story hidden in fragments, shadows, and memory. Technology, combined with human diligence, began to turn the tide. Digital enhancements clarified images once thought impossible to decipher. GIS mapping allowed investigators to track probable movements across the landscape, connecting seemingly isolated events into coherent sequences. Modern DNA techniques could extract partial profiles from previously unusable samples, creating leads that had eluded authorities for years. Each breakthrough reinforced the principle that patience and attention to detail, coupled with technological innovation, could overcome the erosion of decades. The community remained both witness and participant. Residents walked the pier, whispered stories, recounted memories, and kept alive the presence of the missing girl in public consciousness. Their collective vigilance provided not just information, but context, emotional resonance, and accountability. The town's memory, layered and intricate, became an integral part of the investigation, its social networks and shared recollections forming an invisible web that helped detect patterns, inconsistencies, and subtle truths. And through it all, the pier waited. Its wood warped by sun and salt, its planks groaning under the weight of years. It remained a silent observer, a symbol of absence, and a witness to every step investigators and families took in pursuit of understanding. The tides continued to ebb and flow, carrying both secrets and remnants of the past. The humid nights, heavy with cicadas and the smell of salt, bore witness to the persistence of time, the fragility of memory, and the endurance of a truth that refused to remain hidden forever. The Florida 1997 cold case, decades in the making, had transformed from a mystery frozen in fear and confusion into a living, dynamic investigation, shaped by technology, memory, and relentless human effort. Every new insight, every piece of evidence, every moment of reflection brought the town, the investigators, and the girl's family closer to resolution. And yet the shadow of uncertainty remained, a tension between what was known, what could be reconstructed, and what had been lost to time. The investigation was a testament to patience, persistence, and the enduring power of human determination, proving that even decades-old secrets, when pursued with diligence, could eventually be exposed to the light. The case continued, each day a step closer, each breakthrough a ripple in the long, silent pond of time. And the pier, the town, the water, and the shadows waited, unmoving, patient, eternal, as the story pressed forward, drawing all who were involved into a rhythm dictated by hope, evidence, and the inexorable pursuit of truth. The investigation entered its next critical phase as forensic breakthroughs began to reshape the trajectory of the Florida 1997 cold case. Investigators, long accustomed to dead ends and faded memories, now had the advantage of modern DNA technology. Samples once dismissed as too degraded were re-examined, and laboratories worked meticulously to extract even the smallest genetic fragments. Each positive result felt like a heartbeat returning after decades of silence, a pulse of possibility that suggested the long-vanished girl might finally be vindicated by the incontrovertible language of science. The tension in the air was almost tangible, a collective anticipation shared by detectives, families, and the town alike. Every technician handled evidence with the precision of a surgeon, aware that a single misstep could distort years of painstaking work. The pier continued to dominate the mental landscape of the investigation. Its weathered boards, warped by decades of Florida sun and salt, were both obstacle and clue. Detectives revisited every inch, reconstructing probable scenarios, imagining the movements of both victim and perpetrator with painstaking care. Every board, every nail, every shadow became part of a complex cognitive map, a lattice connecting past events to potential present insights. Investigators walked the pier alone, often at dusk, listening to the lapping water as if it could whisper its secrets. They considered the environment itself, how tides could hide evidence, how the scent of salt and decay could obscure movement, how the structure of the boardwalk might dictate a path of opportunity. Witness interviews took on new urgency. People who had once claimed to remember nothing now provided details under careful questioning and advanced memory retrieval techniques. A neighbor recalled the sound of a car, engine unusually close to the pier, a low hum that had been dismissed at the time, but now suggested a pattern of surveillance or planning. Another remembered a figure standing unusually still near the waterline, their gaze fixed and unblinking. Every recollection was cross-referenced against logs, timelines, and newly enhanced video footage. The human mind, even decades later, proved both fragile and revealing, capable of reconstructing patterns lost to the casual eye. Psychological profiling intensified. Experts sought to understand not only the mechanics of the crime, but the mind behind it. Was this an opportunist, striking in a moment of impulse, or a methodical planner, waiting for the perfect moment? Did the perpetrator know the victim personally, or was the act random, predatory, and cruel? Behavioral specialists analyzed local residents, past criminal records, and patterns of suspicious behavior. They mapped out potential escape routes, hideouts, and areas of familiarity, layering their profiles over physical and temporal evidence. Each scenario was rigorously tested against both known facts and probable behavior, narrowing the field with surgical precision. The community's role remained both supportive and complex. Residents who had once been spectators became participants, offering observations, sharing memories, and even volunteering in searches. Old friends of the girl revisited their recollections, and casual acquaintances of potential suspects came forward with new details. Tips poured in from locals and even distant relatives, each carefully documented and investigated. While many leads proved irrelevant, the cumulative effect created a living, breathing network of information. The town itself became an extension of the investigative team, a repository of memory and insight. The forensic labs worked tirelessly. Hairs, fibers, and smudges of unknown origin were analyzed repeatedly with increasingly sensitive methods. Each discovery was verified, replicated, and integrated into the growing database of evidence. Even the smallest trace, an overlooked smear on a railing, a partial fingerprint on a discarded object, was examined as though it could be the key to unlocking a decades-old secret. Investigators understood that time had eroded certainty, but it also preserved fragments that, in capable hands, could speak louder than witnesses, memories, or speculation. Media attention added another dimension. Local news outlets revisited the story periodically, bringing it back to public consciousness. National media occasionally featured the case in documentaries or true crime segments. This coverage had dual consequences. It reminded the public that the case remained unresolved, spurring fresh leads, but it also created a flood of rumors and false information that had to be carefully filtered. Investigators had learned to navigate the delicate balance of openness and caution, extracting usable data without succumbing to distraction. Public interest kept the cold case alive, but it also amplified the stakes, reminding everyone that failure to act swiftly could prolong the agony of decades. Procedural evolution within law enforcement became critical. Evidence handling protocols were updated, chain of custody procedures reinforced, and training on advanced forensic techniques implemented. The lessons learned from decades of investigation were codified, ensuring that both current and future cases would benefit from the experience. The Florida 1997 cold case had, in effect, become a benchmark for long-term investigative diligence, demonstrating the importance of patience, attention to detail, and integration of evolving technologies. The girl's family remained the emotional center. Parents, siblings, and extended relatives participated actively in every phase, reviewing reports, accompanying detectives to the pier, and providing insight into the girl's habits, fears, and social circles. Their involvement was invaluable. They offered perspectives that only those intimately connected to the victim could provide. Emotional endurance had become a defining characteristic of the family, their lives shaped by absence and anticipation, grief and hope intertwined. They were both observers and participants, their vigilance ensuring that no lead, however small, would be ignored. Investigators began to notice patterns emerging from the chaos of decades. A minor tip from years earlier, once dismissed, now aligned with digital reconstructions of the pier, revealing a possible point of interception. Security footage enhanced with modern software revealed subtle movement in areas previously thought empty. DNA fragments hinted at a profile not yet fully identified, yet suggestive enough to narrow focus to a small group of potential suspects. Each breakthrough, though incremental, carried immense psychological weight. The long-slumbering case began to move like a living organism, responding to investigation, memory, and technology in ways both predictable and surprising. The physical environment played a continual role. Investigators mapped every potential path from the pier to nearby roads, noting points where vehicles could hide, where shadows could obscure movement, where escape could be unobserved. The interplay of geography and opportunity became central to reconstructing the events of that night. Maps, satellite imagery, and old photographs were layered with testimony and forensic evidence, creating a multidimensional view of the night sequence. Every environmental factor, from weather patterns to tidal fluctuations, was considered, producing a reconstruction that, while speculative in detail, provided clarity in terms of probabilities and plausibility. The community remained both haunted and vigilant. Parents whispered warnings to their children, neighbors glanced cautiously at strangers, and local authorities emphasized caution while promising resolution. The pier was no longer just a recreational space. It had become a symbol of loss and perseverance, a locus of memory that demanded respect and careful observation. Its presence shaped behavior, conversation, and social awareness, keeping the memory of the missing girl alive in a way that was almost ritualistic. The interplay of old evidence and new technology created a tension that defined every step of the investigation. What had been collected with limited resources decades earlier now revealed new layers under careful scrutiny. Small details once considered trivial, like a fingerprint on a railing or a fiber on clothing, were amplified into significant leads. Investigators cross-referenced every piece of evidence, every recollection, and every hypothesis with digital precision, ensuring that nothing was overlooked. The cold case had become a delicate balance of science, memory, and intuition, each element critical to eventual resolution. As the investigation advanced, the sense of imminent revelation grew palpable. Each breakthrough was met with cautious optimism. Each discovery was weighed against decades of ambiguity. The Florida 1997 cold case, once a story of despair, had become a testament to human perseverance. Investigators, families, and the community were united by a common purpose: to uncover the truth, no matter how long it took. And yet, even as progress was made, the shadow of uncertainty lingered, a reminder that time had eroded certainty and that some secrets resist discovery until the final pieces fall into place. The pier waited, the tide rolled, and the humid Florida nights carried their scent of salt and decay, a constant reminder that while time could erode evidence, it could never erase memory. Every footstep, every whispered recollection, every digital enhancement brought the case closer to resolution. The investigation pressed forward with relentless persistence, propelled by decades of unanswered questions, the weight of community expectation, and the unwavering resolve of those unwilling to let a single clue slip unnoticed. In the end, the Florida 1997 cold case had become more than an unresolved mystery. It had become a testament to endurance, precision, and the unyielding pursuit of truth. Every discovery, no matter how incremental, reinforced the notion that secrets, even after decades, cannot remain hidden forever. The story continued, drawing all who were involved into a rhythm dictated by evidence, intuition, and the inexorable passage of time, pushing relentlessly toward the day when every shadow would be illuminated, every question answered, and every secret exposed to the light. The relentless Florida heat bore down as investigators returned once more to the pier, its weathered boards glinting under the late afternoon sun, creaking with every cautious step. The air carried the familiar scent of salt and decay, a reminder that nature, indifferent to human tragedy, had witnessed the girl's disappearance and preserved its own memory in wood and water. Each day brought new possibilities, yet the weight of decades lingered like a shadow, pressing on those who had committed their lives to uncovering a truth long denied. The pier had become both confounding and revealing, a stage of vanished innocence, a repository of subtle evidence, and a silent confessor of secrets too deep for casual observation. Investigators paced its length, retracing the final moments, imagining unseen figures, and listening to the waves as if they could whisper the sequence of events in that humid summer night of 1997. Laboratories were awash in controlled chaos as evidence underwent reanalysis. Hairs, fibers, and minute DNA traces, once dismissed as degraded or irrelevant, were subjected to modern amplification techniques that could reconstruct genetic material from fragments almost imperceptible to human detection. Each tiny success brought renewed urgency to the investigation, a sense that the decades of waiting were finally giving way to illumination. Technicians handled each sample with reverence, conscious that a single error could undo years of work. The stakes were enormous, and the margin for error vanishingly small. The lab became a theater of concentration, a place where time collapsed, and the past became present in the faint pulse of genetic code. Witness interviews, re-examined under the guidance of modern investigative psychology, revealed layers previously buried. Memory, once thought unreliable, proved to be a subtle instrument. Repeated questioning and cognitive techniques coaxed fragments to the surface. A neighbor recalled a car that had lingered too long near the pier, its engine a quiet hum that had seemed unremarkable at the time. Another remembered shadows that did not belong, a figure frozen unnaturally near the waterline, watching, waiting. Each recollection was meticulously cross-referenced against timelines, physical evidence, and forensic analysis. What had once seemed inconsequential now formed the threads of a tapestry, delicate and incomplete, yet beginning to reveal a pattern where none had been perceived before. Behavioral profiling advanced the investigation further. Experts considered not only opportunity, but psychology, familiarity with the town, patterns of movement, and predilections consistent with abduction. Was the perpetrator a stranger, calculating yet opportunistic, or someone known intimately to the victim? Did they operate alone, or had another individual assisted in secrecy? Each scenario was rigorously tested against the evidence, probabilities calculated, and timelines constructed with precision. The interplay of physical evidence, witness statements, and psychological profiling began to converge into a coherent, though still incomplete, narrative. Community involvement provided a paradoxical mix of aid and challenge. Residents contributed memory and observation, sometimes decades after the fact, revealing details that had been forgotten or overlooked. Tips arrived from local citizens, former acquaintances, even distant relatives, creating a web of potential leads. False leads and misremembered details complicated the process, yet even these provided indirect guidance, highlighting areas where corroborating evidence could be sought. The town itself became an active participant, a living record of collective vigilance, memory, and curiosity. Each resident's recollection, however minor, became a potential piece in a larger puzzle stretching across time and space. The technological lens of modern investigation transformed old evidence into new pathways. Photographs, once grainy and indistinct, were enhanced, revealing subtle movements or objects previously unseen. Video footage, once considered unusable, provided faint outlines suggesting motion or positioning relevant to the night of the disappearance. Geographic information systems allowed analysts to map possible escape routes, hiding places, and sequences of movement with spatial accuracy that had been impossible in 1997. Every discovery, however small, acted as a multiplier, transforming decades-old clues into actionable insight. Media scrutiny both pressured and assisted the investigation. Local news coverage reminded residents of the unresolved nature of the case, prompting new tips and reinvigorating witnesses to come forward. National attention, through documentaries and crime specials, further amplified interest, creating a double-edged sword. Investigators had to filter through rumor, speculation, and embellishment while maintaining focus on verifiable evidence. Public attention kept the case alive, yet it demanded discretion and strategic management to ensure that investigative integrity remained uncompromised. Procedural refinement became a cornerstone of the renewed effort. Evidence handling, long a point of vulnerability in the original investigation, was now governed by strict protocols, ensuring chain of custody integrity and preservation of every sample. Techniques learned from decades of cold cases were applied systematically, demonstrating the evolution of law enforcement into a discipline capable of bridging decades with precision. Each lesson from past missteps reinforced current practices, ensuring that every piece of evidence was maximized in potential impact. The family remained both anchor and compass. The girl's parents, her siblings, and extended relatives worked tirelessly alongside investigators, reviewing every new lead, scrutinizing every analysis, and offering insight into personal habits, fears, and social circles. Their emotional endurance was extraordinary, forged in decades of absence, uncertainty, and intermittent hope. They had become collaborators, their intimate knowledge of the girl's life providing context to facts that might otherwise be overlooked. Their presence ensured the human dimension remained central in a case increasingly mediated by technology, data, and forensic abstraction. Patterns began to crystallize from the chaos. Small inconsistencies previously ignored, like a mismatched witness statement or an unexamined fiber, now aligned with enhanced digital reconstructions and forensic analysis. Probable sequences of movement emerged, revealing points of vulnerability, potential escape routes, and the likelihood of premeditation. DNA hints suggested the possibility of identifying a suspect profile, narrowing the field in ways that had once seemed impossible. Incremental discoveries multiplied, each new insight building upon the last, creating momentum in a case long considered dormant. The pier remained a silent sentinel, observing everything yet revealing nothing willingly. Investigators walked its length repeatedly, reconstructing possible scenarios, imagining every interaction, every movement, every unnoticed sound. Tides, weather patterns, and even human behavior were accounted for, producing a simulation that, while not absolute, provided a framework for understanding the sequence of events. The structure itself, warped and weathered, became both obstacle and guide, a canvas for the meticulous reconstruction of an event that had left an indelible mark on the community. Community vigilance remained crucial. Residents continued to offer memory, observation, and guidance. Long-forgotten conversations, trivial at the time, were reinterpreted in the context of the investigation. Every recollection, no matter how small, contributed to the mosaic of understanding. The town's collective awareness created a network of subtle intelligence, allowing investigators to map behavior, social interactions, and potential locations. Community memory, often underestimated, proved a powerful tool in reconstructing events from decades past. The combination of old evidence and modern technology produced unprecedented clarity. Previously discarded fingerprints, fibers, and DNA traces now yielded meaningful data. Security footage, enhanced with contemporary software, illuminated subtle movements that were previously invisible. Geographic mapping and behavioral analysis converged to identify patterns and sequences, narrowing timelines and focusing attention on specific suspects. The case had evolved from static frustration into a dynamic investigation, where past and present merged to create actionable insight. The girl's family experienced each development as a mixture of hope, dread, and cautious anticipation. Anniversaries marked the passage of time, yet each discovery, no matter how small, rekindled the possibility of resolution. Their vigilance, persistence, and involvement remained central to the investigation, ensuring that leads were pursued rigorously and that no clue was dismissed. They had become collaborators, their lived experience providing insight and emotional calibration for the complex, technologically mediated investigation. Every new development increased both the pressure and the possibility. Investigators, aware that time had eroded physical certainty, relied heavily on synthesis, connecting witness recollection, forensic evidence, and behavioral analysis to reconstruct a coherent narrative. Each breakthrough was meticulously verified, cross-referenced, and contextualized. The Florida 1997 cold case, long a symbol of unresolved anguish, was transforming into a testament to the interplay of human memory, forensic science, and relentless perseverance. Evenings at the pier were tinged with a quiet reverence. The water, perpetually moving, seemed to echo the passage of time, reflecting both the unyielding march of nature and the fragile persistence of human effort. Shadows lengthened across the weathered planks, each one a silent reminder that every detail mattered. The investigation pressed forward with cautious urgency, each breakthrough building toward an inevitable resolution. The cold case was no longer merely a story of disappearance. It had become a living process, a testament to patience, rigor, and the enduring pursuit of justice, demonstrating that even decades-old secrets could be unraveled when perseverance, science, and human insight converge. The investigation moved forward, each day closer to exposing the hidden truths, each small discovery a step toward resolving the decades-old mystery, and each witness recollection, DNA match, and forensic analysis contributing to a story long suspended in silence, but now steadily finding its voice. The Florida 1997 cold case had become a rhythm, a cadence of patience, diligence, and relentless search, moving inexorably toward clarity even as the shadows of the past lingered over the pier, the town, and the memory of a life that had been stolen too early. The Florida nights were thick with humidity, carrying the salty tang of the ocean and the faintly metallic scent of old wood from the pier, a constant reminder that the environment itself had been both witness and accomplice to a tragedy that had unfolded decades earlier. Investigators returned repeatedly, pacing the warped boards under the moonlight, imagining every possible scenario, every footstep, every shadow that might have concealed a crucial detail. The pier creaked beneath their weight as if echoing the tension of the decades-long search, each groan resonating like a call from the past, urging them to notice what had been overlooked. Time had been both ally and adversary. It had obscured immediate clarity, yet preserved traces, subtle and minute, waiting for those patient and meticulous enough to detect them. In the forensic laboratories, the pulse of the investigation quickened with every advancement in DNA amplification. Samples that had long been considered useless were now generating partial profiles, tiny threads that could be woven into the larger tapestry of identification. Fibers, strands of hair, smudges of skin cells, once dismissed as too degraded, were now revealing the contours of a story hidden in the molecular shadows. Technicians worked with surgical precision, knowing that the smallest contamination could compromise years of painstaking work. Each breakthrough, however incremental, carried immense weight, injecting renewed energy into a case that had been defined for so long by uncertainty and loss. Witnesses, long dormant in memory, were now being revisited with techniques that could coax details from the recesses of recollection. A jogger who had passed the pier on the evening of the disappearance remembered a vehicle idling nearby, its engine a low hum barely audible over the crashing waves. A fisherman recalled a figure standing unnaturally still on the edge of the boardwalk, watching, waiting, a posture so rigid it had seemed almost unnatural at the time. These fragments, seemingly trivial for years, now aligned with digital reconstructions, creating a lattice of potential action and observation. Investigators began to map probable sequences of movement, the choreography of a night that had once been obscured by fear and confusion. Behavioral profiling sharpened the focus of the inquiry. Experts analyzed opportunity, predilection, and familiarity with the environment, attempting to reconstruct the perpetrator's mindset as well as their movements. The central question remained: was this a crime of impulse or calculation, of familiarity or predation? Each scenario was tested against forensic evidence, witness testimony, and environmental factors. Probability matrices were constructed, illustrating pathways of movement, points of interception, and the likely psychology behind actions taken under cover of darkness. With each revision, the profile became more precise, narrowing the pool of potential suspects and providing a framework for action that had been absent for decades. The community's involvement added layers of both aid and complexity. Former residents, old acquaintances, and even distant relatives contributed memories long buried, details that had seemed inconsequential at the time, but now illuminated potential pathways. A neighbor remembered a fleeting conversation that hinted at fear. A childhood friend recalled a vehicle that lingered too long in the driveway. Even casual passers-by, recounted anomalies they had noticed but dismissed. Investigators documented every detail, weighing reliability, consistency, and alignment with other data. The town itself became a living archive, its collective memory a dynamic component of the investigative process, bridging the gap between past events and present understanding. Technological advancements transformed once inaccessible evidence into meaningful insight. Old photographs were enhanced, revealing subtle shadows and movements previously invisible. Security footage, re-examined with sophisticated software, highlighted fleeting motion that had been dismissed as noise. Geographic information systems allowed analysts to overlay witness statements, environmental data, and probable movement patterns, constructing a three-dimensional understanding of the night in question. Each technological tool acted as an amplifier, turning previously ignored or indecipherable data into a source of actionable intelligence, incrementally unraveling the tightly held secrecy of the past. Media coverage maintained a delicate balance, reminding the public that the case remained unresolved while stimulating the flow of new information. Local news features prompted tips and recollections from witnesses who had previously remained silent. National true crime documentaries rekindled attention, drawing new eyes and ears to the mystery. Investigators navigated the dual impact carefully, filtering through speculation and rumor while leveraging useful contributions. Public interest, while a source of pressure, proved instrumental in sustaining the momentum necessary for progress in a case measured in decades. Procedural innovation reinforced the investigation. Evidence handling protocols were refined, chain of custody documentation strengthened, and training in modern forensic techniques applied rigorously. Lessons learned over decades were codified into best practices, ensuring that errors of the past would not compromise present work. The Florida 1997 cold case served as both challenge and template, demonstrating how patience, procedural rigor, and methodological evolution could converge to extract clarity from the chaos of time. Every new investigation benefited from the refinement honed by this persistent inquiry. The girl's family remained central to the operation. Her parents, siblings, and extended relatives collaborated actively, reviewing evidence, discussing timelines, and providing personal insight into behavioral tendencies, habits, and social connections. Their lived experience added depth to forensic and analytical interpretation, ensuring that investigative hypotheses remained anchored to the reality of the girl's life and the community in which she lived. Emotional endurance was a constant companion, tempered by years of anticipation, grief, and intermittent hope, and their vigilance ensured that no lead, however minor, was dismissed lightly. Emergent patterns began to reveal themselves in unexpected ways. Minor anomalies, an overlooked fingerprint, an ambiguous fiber, a previously unverified observation, now integrated into enhanced reconstructions and DNA analyses, highlighting a network of plausible sequences. Probable escape routes, points of interception, and zones of opportunity became increasingly apparent. Partial genetic profiles suggested the possibility of identifying a suspect, narrowing the scope and offering tangible focus to a case that had long relied on conjecture. Each incremental discovery contributed to a sense of momentum, a rare forward motion after decades of stagnation. The pier itself remained a symbol, an omnipresent witness to the unfolding investigation. Investigators walked its length repeatedly, imagining paths, mapping interactions, and considering the impact of tides, lighting, and environmental variables on movement and observation. Its warped boards and weathered posts were no longer just obstacles but guides, suggesting probable lines of sight, points of concealment, and sequences of traversal. The physical space of the pier became a silent partner in the reconstruction of events, its structure informing hypotheses, validating possibilities, and anchoring the investigation in the tangible reality of the crime scene. Community vigilance persisted. Residents, even those long removed from the area, shared recollections, observations, and conjectures. Conversations, once trivial or dismissed, were reinterpreted through the lens of modern understanding. Each account, corroborated and contextualized, formed threads in a broader tapestry that mapped human behavior, environmental interaction, and social connections, providing investigators with a nuanced understanding necessary to bridge decades of uncertainty. The town's collective memory had become a dynamic investigative tool, capable of revealing the previously invisible through the careful aggregation of minor details. The interplay of human diligence and technological advancement reached a critical juncture. Previously overlooked evidence became meaningful. Digital reconstructions illuminated patterns, and partial DNA profiles suggested direction. Witness statements, once fragmented and inconsistent, now aligned with environmental data and probabilistic modeling. The case evolved from static, frozen despair into a dynamic, responsive process propelled by the integration of memory, science, and persistent effort. For the girl's family, every development was fraught with emotional intensity. Hope interlaced with fear, anticipation tempered by the uncertainty that had defined decades of waiting. Their involvement ensured that the human dimension remained central, guiding investigative focus and providing context for each emerging lead. Emotional vigilance intertwined with procedural rigor, creating a synergy that propelled the case forward with both urgency and care. The pier, the water, the shadows of Florida nights, and the collective memory of the town continued to watch, to whisper, and to guide. Investigators moved with cautious determination, connecting leads, reconstructing sequences, and interpreting patterns with a combination of science, intuition, and human insight. The Florida 1997 cold case had transformed from a story of disappearance into a living, evolving investigation, demonstrating that even decades-old mysteries could yield to persistent effort, technological innovation, and the unyielding pursuit of truth. Each discovery brought the case closer to resolution. The interplay of forensic science, witness memory, and environmental analysis gradually reduced uncertainty, revealing the contours of a night long obscured by time. Investigators pressed forward with relentless persistence, guided by evidence, intuition, and the collective memory of a community unwilling to forget. And while the shadows of the past still lingered over the pier and the town, each breakthrough illuminated the path toward justice, slowly transforming absence into understanding, mystery into revelation, and decades of silence into the steady, deliberate cadence of truth. The Florida summer nights pressed heavily on the town, humid air clinging to every surface, carrying the indistinct sense of salt, decay, and memories long buried. The pier, its planks sun-bleached and warped over decades, seemed to breathe with the weight of a story still unfolding. Investigators returned night after night, retracing imagined steps, reconstructing sequences, listening to the waves lap against pilings as though they carried fragments of a confession. Each creak of wood underfoot echoed like a question, unanswered but persistent, demanding attention from those who had devoted their lives to this pursuit. The case, dormant for so long, was now moving with a deliberate tension, the kind that presses on the chest and sharpens every sense. Modern forensic science had revolutionized the investigation. Samples long considered degraded, strands of hair, smudges of skin, and faint fibers, were being amplified and analyzed with precision that had been impossible in 1997. Laboratories hummed with controlled chaos, the rhythmic beat of machines almost hypnotic as technicians meticulously extracted every viable trace of DNA. Every small match, every partial sequence, was like a heartbeat reawakening a story thought lost. Each fragment carried immense significance, a whisper of the past that demanded recognition, a piece of the puzzle that had lain dormant, waiting for technology to translate its silent language into clarity. Witnesses who had long believed they remembered nothing were now revisited with the subtlety of cognitive interviewing and memory reconstruction techniques. Recollection emerged in fragments. A low hum of a car engine near the pier, a figure frozen unnaturally at the water's edge, a shadow crossing the boardwalk at an impossible angle. These seemingly minor observations, once ignored or dismissed, began to align with digital reconstructions of the pier, revealing a lattice of movement and intent. Every detail, no matter how fleeting, became a potential key in unraveling the narrative of that night, the choreography of predator and prey emerging with painstaking clarity. Behavioral profiling sharpened its focus with each new lead. Analysts sought to understand opportunity, motive, and familiarity with the environment, constructing probabilistic models of the perpetrator's mindset and movements. Was the abduction impulsive or calculated? Was the victim targeted for reasons known only to the perpetrator, or was this an act of predation on a stranger? Each question generated pathways of inquiry, guiding investigators through a maze of temporal and spatial possibilities. Profiles were tested against evidence, environmental constraints, and witness accounts, narrowing the field and bringing previously vague suspicion into defined focus. Community memory became a critical instrument in the investigation. Neighbors, acquaintances, and even distant relatives contributed fragments, stories, and recollections. An overlooked conversation, a casual observation, a fleeting impression, all became data points in reconstructing a night that had long slipped into obscurity. Every contribution was meticulously documented, cross-referenced, and weighed against corroborating evidence. The town itself became an extension of the investigative apparatus, a repository of collective vigilance capable of revealing subtle truths long hidden beneath the weight of time. Technological enhancements transformed old, previously indecipherable evidence into usable insights. Grainy photographs were sharpened, revealing shapes and motions invisible to the naked eye. Security footage, once dismissed as inconclusive, highlighted subtle movement and positioning. Geographic information systems allowed analysts to overlay environmental conditions, witness accounts, and probable movement sequences, constructing a multi-dimensional representation of the night's events. What had once been fragmented and inconclusive now began to suggest a coherent narrative, each technological advance turning forgotten traces into critical data points. Media attention, though a double-edged sword, proved instrumental. Coverage in local news and national true crime programs kept the public engaged, prompting new tips and unearthing long-forgotten memories. Investigators navigated this landscape with caution, filtering rumor from actionable information. Public interest sustained momentum, but it also created pressure. Expectations mounted, and every detail was scrutinized not just by law enforcement, but by a community eager for resolution. The interplay between scrutiny and insight created a delicate balance that required both discipline and strategy. Procedural discipline evolved in parallel with the investigation. Evidence handling protocols, once rudimentary, were now codified and rigorously enforced. Chain of custody documentation was meticulous, ensuring that every sample retained its evidentiary value. Techniques refined over decades of cold case investigation were applied, preventing past errors from undermining current progress. The Florida 1997 case had become an exemplar of investigative evolution, demonstrating how diligence, procedural rigor, and the integration of new technologies could intersect to extract clarity from years of ambiguity. The girl's family remained the emotional center of the effort. Parents, siblings, and extended relatives engaged actively, reviewing evidence, contributing recollections, and providing insight into behavioral patterns, fears, and social connections. Their lived experience added a dimension to investigative interpretation that was impossible to replicate through forensic science alone. Emotional endurance was paramount, honed over decades of anticipation, grief, and fleeting hope. The family's vigilance ensured that no lead, however minor, was overlooked and that the human narrative remained central in a process increasingly dominated by data, technology, and methodical analysis. Patterns slowly emerged from the chaos. Small anomalies, an overlooked fingerprint, a stray fiber, a long-dismissed witness observation, began to interlock with forensic evidence and digital reconstructions. Probable escape routes, points of interception, and zones of opportunity became apparent. Partial DNA sequences suggested potential identities, narrowing the suspect pool and providing investigators with focused direction. Each incremental insight carried enormous weight, gradually transforming the once frozen case into a dynamic, actionable investigation. The pier itself remained a symbol and a witness. Investigators walked its length repeatedly, considering the impact of tides, lighting, and structural anomalies on movement and observation. Warped boards and rusted nails became guides, suggesting paths, lines of sight, and points where concealment or interception might have occurred. The structure informed hypotheses, validated scenarios, and anchored the investigation in tangible reality, providing a physical framework against which evidence, memory, and probability could be aligned. Community vigilance persisted, a living network of observation and recollection. Residents, even those long removed from the area, contributed fragmented memories, connecting past conversations and impressions to new investigative insights. The town's collective memory became a dynamic investigative tool, capable of bridging decades, revealing patterns, and corroborating evidence. Even minor recollections, once considered irrelevant, were reassessed, mapped, and integrated into the growing narrative of events, a testament to the enduring power of shared memory. The synergy between human effort and technological advancement produced unprecedented clarity. Previously ignored evidence became pivotal. Digital reconstructions illuminated movement patterns, and partial DNA sequences offered critical focus. Witness statements, environmental analysis, and forensic data were cross-referenced, revealing coherence from apparent chaos. The case evolved from a static memorial of tragedy into an active, responsive investigation, propelled by the combined forces of memory, science, and relentless persistence. The girl's family experienced each new development with intensity, hope interlaced with anxiety, anticipation tempered by decades of uncertainty. Their involvement ensured that the human dimension remained central, grounding every investigative step in lived reality. Emotional vigilance and procedural rigor intertwined, guiding the investigation forward with both precision and care. The Florida 1997 cold case, long a symbol of unresolved anguish, was transforming into a testament to perseverance, collaboration, and the inexorable pursuit of truth. The pier, the water, and the shadows of Florida nights continued to bear silent witness. Investigators pressed forward, connecting leads, reconstructing probable sequences, and interpreting patterns with a combination of technology, intuition, and human insight. The case had become a rhythm, a cadence of patient diligence, where each fragment of evidence and recollection contributed to a gradually emerging truth. Time, once an adversary, had become an ally in revealing the subtle connections hidden in memory, environment, and biology. Every discovery brought the investigation closer to resolution. Partial DNA profiles, enhanced visual evidence, and corroborated witness accounts reduced uncertainty, illuminating probable sequences of action and identity. Investigators moved methodically, yet with growing urgency, understanding that decades of absence had only intensified the need for closure. The Florida 1997 cold case had evolved from a story of loss into a living, adaptive investigation, demonstrating that even the oldest secrets could yield to patient diligence, technological innovation, and the unrelenting pursuit of justice. The shadows of the past still lingered, casting long shapes over the pier, the town, and the community's collective memory. Yet with every breakthrough, the light of understanding edged closer, illuminating previously hidden details, connecting fragments of evidence, and revealing the contours of a night long shrouded in mystery. The case had become more than a search for justice. It was a study in endurance, in human and technological cooperation, and in the relentless pursuit of truth that no amount of time could extinguish. The rhythm of investigation persisted, a steady cadence driving toward clarity, resolution, and the final illumination of a decades-old cold case. The Florida dawn broke with a humid haze, casting pale light over the weathered pier, the wood slick with overnight condensation, each plank reflecting faintly the memories of that summer night so many years ago. Investigators returned as if drawn by gravity, retracing every conceivable step, mapping every shadow and every creek. The wind carried the scent of salt and decayed wood, a silent witness to the secrets hidden in the folds of time. Each detail, however minute, had the potential to rewrite the narrative, to illuminate paths once obscured by darkness, negligence, or simple oversight. The case had long been dormant, yet with the persistent pulse of forensic technology and human determination, it was stirring to life. Inside the laboratory, the atmosphere was electric. DNA samples long dismissed as degraded were revealing patterns, small but unmistakable, in the strands of genetic code extracted from hair, fibers, and smudges of skin. Each technician handled the material with painstaking care, aware that contamination could erase years of work. The microscopes and sequencing machines hummed in unison, a mechanical chorus turning fragments into a story. Every match, every partial sequence, was a spark, igniting hope that the past could finally speak. These threads, invisible to the naked eye decades ago, were now threads of truth, weaving together the disparate, fractured moments of a night long lost to memory. Witnesses were re-examined under new methodologies, employing cognitive techniques that could draw clarity from years of hazy recollection. Recalled details were sometimes fleeting, a hum of an engine, a shadow moving against the faint moonlight, a fleeting figure near the pier's edge. But in combination with enhanced digital reconstructions and spatial mapping, these fragments began to align, forming a lattice of movement, behavior, and intent. Investigators imagined sequences, testing scenarios in painstaking simulations, accounting for tide, lighting, and wind. Each night's reconstruction brought them closer to the choreography of that long-ago night, every element a note in a melody of abduction, fear, and secrecy. Behavioral analysts worked in parallel, constructing profiles based on observed opportunity, psychological tendencies, and likely familiarity with the environment. The questions were exacting. Was this the act of a stranger, predatory yet opportunistic, or someone known intimately to the victim, moving with calculated precision under the guise of familiarity? Were accomplices involved, or was this an isolated act of meticulous cruelty? Each hypothesis was tested against forensic evidence, witness testimony, and environmental constraints. The emerging profile gradually narrowed the suspect pool, creating a framework within which investigators could operate with clarity and precision. Community engagement played a dual role. Residents, former acquaintances, and even distant relatives supplied memories long overlooked. Each contribution, however minor, became a potential key. A fleeting remark, a casual observation, a recollection of a vehicle idling too long. All were logged, verified, and cross-referenced. The town itself became a living witness, its collective memory forming a lattice of subtle intelligence that bridged decades of absence. Every fragment of communal recall contributed to reconstructing both social interactions and probable movements, allowing investigators to map not only the physical but also the psychological landscape of the crime. Technology reshaped the contours of the investigation. Grainy photographs, once indecipherable, were sharpened and enhanced, revealing shadows, subtle movements, and objects previously invisible. Security footage, enhanced with modern software, identified fleeting activity once dismissed as noise. Geographic information systems allowed investigators to combine environmental data, witness reports, and probable sequences of movement into a coherent three-dimensional map. Each technological advancement transformed fragments of the past into actionable insight, turning the invisible into evidence and the uncertain into probability. Media exposure amplified both pressure and opportunity. Local coverage prompted new tips, while national documentaries reignited public interest. Investigators navigated this landscape carefully, filtering misinformation and rumor while using legitimate contributions to guide analysis. Public scrutiny maintained momentum but required strategic management. Every new lead or recollection brought both promise and complication, challenging investigators to maintain rigor amid a heightened spotlight and to separate signal from noise in a world eager for resolution. Procedural discipline was reinforced at every stage. Evidence handling protocols were meticulously applied, ensuring chain of custody integrity, preserving every sample for maximum analytical yield. Lessons from decades of cold cases informed contemporary techniques, allowing investigators to avoid past missteps and apply rigorous methodology to every fragment of evidence. The Florida 1997 cold case had become a model of systematic precision, demonstrating that patience, procedural rigor, and technological advancement could combine to transform decades of ambiguity into actionable insight. The family remained an emotional fulcrum. Parents, siblings, and extended relatives collaborated actively, reviewing evidence, contributing intimate knowledge of social patterns and behavioral tendencies, and providing context that only those who knew the victim could offer. Their vigilance ensured that no lead, however minor, was ignored, and their presence kept the human element central in a process increasingly mediated by machines and statistical modeling. Emotional endurance was remarkable, a decades-long commitment sustained by intermittent hope, grief, and the drive for justice. Patterns emerged from apparent chaos. Minor anomalies, a misplaced fingerprint, a stray fiber, an overlooked detail from a witness, began to coalesce into coherent sequences. Probable escape routes, points of interception, and zones of vulnerability were identified, narrowing the range of possibilities. Partial DNA sequences suggested potential suspects, providing tangible focus where previously only conjecture existed. Each incremental breakthrough compounded, creating a momentum that had been absent for decades. The pier itself remained a silent observer. Investigators walked its planks repeatedly, considering tidal patterns, lighting, and structural idiosyncrasies. Every nail, every crack, every warp became a guide to potential lines of sight, points of concealment, and possible movement. The physical space anchored the investigation, providing a framework against which witness statements, forensic analysis, and probabilistic modeling could be aligned. It was both a challenge and a tool, shaping hypotheses while demanding rigorous testing against tangible reality. Community vigilance remained a powerful resource. Long-forgotten conversations, fleeting impressions, and casual observations were revisited and reinterpreted. The collective memory of the town offered corroboration, context, and nuance, allowing investigators to piece together social interactions, behavior patterns, and environmental context. Even minor details, once dismissed, contributed to a growing map of probable events, illuminating the pathways by which the crime had unfolded. The combination of human insight and technological capability was producing unprecedented clarity. Evidence once considered unusable became pivotal. Witness statements, environmental reconstruction, and forensic analysis coalesced into a clearer picture. The cold case transformed from a static record of loss into an evolving investigation, propelled by science, memory, and relentless human effort. Each breakthrough reinforced the notion that persistence, careful methodology, and the integration of old and new knowledge could overcome the obfuscation of decades. The girl's family endured each new revelation with intensity. Hope mixed with dread, anticipation with lingering fear. Their emotional presence ensured that the investigation remained grounded, balancing analytical rigor with personal understanding. Emotional vigilance intertwined with procedural discipline, creating a synergy that advanced the case with both precision and empathy. The Florida 1997 cold case was no longer simply a story of disappearance, but a living, dynamic process, a testament to perseverance and the interplay between human and technological determination. The pier, the water, and the shadows continued to hold their secrets. Yet each night of meticulous investigation brought new understanding. Investigators tracked leads, reconstructed sequences, and interpreted evidence with the guidance of intuition, analytical reasoning, and modern science. The case had become a rhythm, a cadence of patient effort where fragments of memory, DNA, and environmental data converged. Time, once a barrier, had become a bridge, allowing investigators to connect events separated by decades, revealing the hidden choreography of that fateful night. Every small discovery moved the case closer to resolution. Partial DNA matches, enhanced visual evidence, and corroborated witness accounts provided clarity where once there was ambiguity. Investigators proceeded methodically, aware of the pressure, yet driven by the relentless need for answers. The Florida 1997 cold case had evolved from a narrative of absence into an active, adaptive investigation, demonstrating that even the oldest secrets could yield to patient diligence, technological innovation, and unyielding pursuit of justice. The shadows of history still lingered, stretching over the pier, the town, and the collective memory of the community. Yet the light of evidence and insight gradually illuminated hidden truths, connecting fragments into sequences of events and revealing the contours of a night long shrouded in uncertainty. The investigation was no longer frozen in time. It had become a living process, a rhythm of determination, perseverance, and discovery, moving inexorably toward clarity, resolution, and the ultimate revelation of truth in a decades-old cold case. The Florida nights carried a peculiar weight, the kind that presses against the skin and whispers in the ears of those who remember and those who search. Investigators returned to the pier, their flashlights cutting through darkness, illuminating warped planks and rusted railings, the air heavy with salt, humidity, and the lingering echoes of a tragedy frozen in time. Every sound, the creak of a board, the soft slap of waves against pilings, felt amplified, as if the environment itself demanded attention, as if the night remembered and was willing to speak only to those who listened carefully. The case, once considered cold, was now alive, pulsing with the meticulous rhythm of discovery, a testament to decades of patience, persistence, and relentless inquiry. Forensic teams worked tirelessly, amplifying samples once deemed unusable. Minute traces of hair, fibers, and skin cells yielded partial DNA profiles, each sequence a whisper from the past, hinting at truths long buried. The laboratory hummed with precise energy, machines processing, amplifying, and analyzing, converting invisible fragments into data with a clarity that would have seemed impossible in 1997. Every match, every confirmed fragment, acted like a pulse through the investigation, a lifeline connecting the present to a night shrouded in uncertainty. The tiniest detail now carried immense weight, capable of shifting theory and reshaping hypotheses, turning decades of ambiguity into actionable insight. Witnesses were revisited, memories coaxed from the depths of long-forgotten events. A jogger's recollection of a car engine idling near the pier, a fisherman's fleeting glimpse of a figure standing unnaturally still, a neighbor's memory of a shadow crossing the boardwalk. All details once dismissed became central threads in reconstructing the night. Investigators mapped sequences of movement, environmental conditions, and possible interactions, testing scenarios against every fragment of recollection. Each step brought clarity. Each alignment of testimony and evidence refined the probable narrative, slowly transforming the chaotic mystery into a structured, analyzable sequence of events. Behavioral profiling honed the focus of investigation. Experts examined opportunity, motivation, and familiarity with the environment, building a psychological map of the perpetrator. Was this a crime of impulse, predation, or careful calculation? Did the suspect act with knowledge of the victim's habits, the town's rhythms, and the peer structure? Each question guided the probabilistic modeling of movement, opportunity, and risk, narrowing the suspect pool and allowing investigators to operate with precision previously unattainable. Profiles evolved in real time, adjusting to newly discovered evidence, witness recollections, and DNA results, a dynamic process converging toward clarity. The town itself became a living witness, its collective memory forming an archive of observations, rumors, and recollections. Former residents, distant relatives, and neighbors supplied details long overlooked. Casual conversations, fleeting impressions, and mundane events suddenly gained significance. Each contribution was meticulously logged, corroborated where possible, and integrated into the growing mosaic of the investigation. Social connections, behavioral patterns, and environmental familiarity were mapped alongside forensic evidence, creating a multi-layered reconstruction of events. The community's memory was not static. It was a dynamic resource, capable of revealing subtle truths invisible to conventional analysis. Technological innovation reshaped the investigation's possibilities. Grainy photographs were enhanced, revealing shadows and movements previously undetectable. Security footage, long dismissed as inconclusive, identified fleeting patterns in motion, giving structure to witness accounts. Geographic information systems allowed investigators to overlay environmental data, probable movement sequences, and witness statements, producing a three-dimensional model of the night. Every technological advancement converted fragments of uncertainty into actionable intelligence, illuminating pathways and interactions previously invisible. Media involvement acted as both catalyst and challenge. Local news coverage prompted new tips, while national true crime attention rekindled interest, drawing out memories long forgotten. Investigators balanced public scrutiny with procedural integrity, filtering rumor from fact while capitalizing on legitimate contributions. The duality of media pressure and opportunity required careful navigation, ensuring that public interest propelled the investigation without overwhelming it. Each lead generated by attention had to be measured against evidence, corroboration, and the timeline, maintaining rigor amid renewed public scrutiny. Procedural rigor reinforced every investigative step. Chain of custody documentation, evidence handling, and analytic methodology were applied with precision. Lessons learned from decades of cold cases informed contemporary practice, preventing previous errors from affecting current progress. The Florida 1997 case became an exemplar of procedural excellence, demonstrating the power of patient methodology, technological integration, and disciplined attention to detail in solving mysteries thought lost to time. Every fragment, from the smallest fiber to the faintest witness recollection, was treated as critical, ensuring that cumulative knowledge produced reliable and actionable insight. The family remained central to the investigation. Their engagement was both emotional and practical. They reviewed evidence, provided insights into the victim's behavior and habits, and offered context impossible for investigators to discern from raw data alone. Emotional resilience had been honed over decades, alternating between hope, grief, and cautious optimism. Their involvement ensured that the human element remained central in a process increasingly mediated by technology and statistical modeling. Each new discovery was filtered through their lived experience, providing clarity and context that strengthened the investigation's interpretive framework. Patterns emerged from seemingly unrelated details. Minor anomalies, a forgotten fingerprint, an overlooked fiber, a long-ignored observation, began to fit into reconstructed sequences of events. Escape routes, potential points of interception, and probable environmental interactions were identified, narrowing the suspect pool and focusing investigative energy. Partial DNA profiles suggested potential identities, turning once indeterminate possibilities into tangible targets. Every incremental discovery built momentum, transforming decades of frustration and uncertainty in a structured inquiry with actionable outcomes. The pier itself remained a silent witness, its planks and pilings guiding hypotheses about lines of sight, points of concealment, and probable movements. Investigators walked its length repeatedly, considering the interaction of tides, light, and structure, integrating environmental factors into reconstructed sequences. The physical space of the pier anchored the investigation, providing a concrete framework for testing hypotheses, validating witness recollections, and aligning probabilistic models with reality. The pier was both challenge and partner, shaping the investigation as much as it had once concealed the truth. Community vigilance remained a powerful resource. Memories, long dormant, resurfaced as conversations, recollections, and small details were cross-referenced and contextualized. The collective memory of the town illuminated social connections, environmental familiarity, and behavioral tendencies, allowing investigators to reconstruct sequences with precision. Even minor details, once dismissed, contributed to the overall map of events, reinforcing the interconnectedness of human observation, environmental factors, and forensic evidence. Human diligence and technological sophistication combined to produce unprecedented clarity. Once inconsequential fragments became critical, witness statements aligned with reconstructed sequences and partial DNA evidence provided direction. The case, previously static, now evolved dynamically, propelled by memory, analysis, and relentless effort. Breakthroughs demonstrated that persistent methodology, patience, and integration of diverse investigative tools could overcome decades of obscurity. The girl's family experienced each discovery intensely. Anticipation mingled with fear, hope with lingering grief. Their presence ensured that the investigation remained grounded in lived reality, balancing analytical rigor with human understanding. Emotional vigilance and procedural discipline intertwined, allowing the case to advance with precision and empathy. The Florida 1997 cold case was no longer merely a story of disappearance, but a living investigation, a study in perseverance, and a testament to the relentless pursuit of justice. The pier, water, and shadows continued to observe silently, yet each night's work illuminated hidden truths. Investigators reconstructed sequences, interpreted evidence, and mapped patterns, integrating intuition, analysis, and science. The investigation had become a rhythm, a cadence of meticulous effort where memory, DNA, and environmental data converged. Time, once an obstacle, became an instrument, bridging decades and revealing the hidden choreography of that fateful night. Each breakthrough brought the investigation closer to resolution. DNA sequences, enhanced visual records, and corroborated accounts reduced ambiguity, identifying probable sequences and narrowing suspect possibilities. Investigators moved forward with methodical urgency, aware that decades of waiting intensified the need for answers. The Florida 1997 cold case evolved from a narrative of absence into an adaptive, living investigation, demonstrating that even the oldest mysteries could yield to technology, persistence, and the unyielding pursuit of truth. The shadows of history lingered over the pier, town, and collective memory, yet evidence illuminated hidden details, connecting fragments and revealing the night's contours. The case had transitioned from frozen silence to active investigation, a rhythm of determination and discovery moving inexorably toward clarity, resolution, and the long-sought revelation of truth in a decades-old cold case.